The Resilient Spirit. A practical guide to reclaiming your confidence and self-esteem during illness. Transforming your mindset to navigate chronic challenges and find empowerment in healing. All rights reserved. When you are navigating the complexities of a health challenge, the world often begins to feel very small. Your focus narrows to the next appointment, the next pill, or the next wave of fatigue. Over time, it becomes easy to believe that your life has been reduced to your medical chart. I wrote The Resilient Spirit, a practical guide to reclaiming your confidence and self-esteem during illness, because I have seen and experienced how quickly the spirit can dim when we feel our agency slipping away. This book was born out of a realization: while medical science focuses on treating the body, there is a profound, often neglected need to treat the person living within that body. We are frequently told to stay positive, or be strong, yet we are rarely given the psychological tools to handle the erosion of self-esteem that chronic illness often brings. My goal is to bridge that gap. I want to offer you a framework for reclaiming your sense of self, not by ignoring your physical reality, but by learning how to live fully alongside it. The scope of this guide is intentionally practical. It is not a collection of abstract theories, but a roadmap for the day-to-day work of living with chronic challenges. We will explore how to decouple your identity from your diagnosis, how to manage your precious energy reserves, and how to communicate your needs to those around you. We will also delve into the necessity of radical self-compassion, a vital, yet often misunderstood, practice that serves as the foundation for all healing. This book is intended for anyone who feels that their illness has become the loudest voice in the room. Whether you are newly diagnosed or have been navigating a health journey for years, you likely know the frustration of feeling misunderstood, the guilt of needing to say no, and the exhaustion of constantly having to advocate for your own care. If you are ready to stop waiting for your life to get back to normal, and are instead prepared to build a life that is meaningful and empowering right now, then this book is for you. The tone I have adopted throughout these pages is one of empathetic partnership. I am not here to offer false hope or medical advice, but to stand beside you as a guide. We will approach your challenges with a mindset grounded in psychological resilience. You will find that the chapters are structured to move you from the initial shock of diagnosis toward a future you can design with intention and clarity. We will cover the importance of cultivating a supportive social circle, the power of reframing your personal narrative, and the necessity of integrating your physical and emotional needs. My hope is that as you read, you will feel seen. I want you to recognize that your worth is not tied to your productivity, your health status, or your ability to bounce back. Your resilience is not measured by how well you hide your struggles, but by how honestly you face them and how gently you treat yourself while doing so. By the time you reach the final chapter, my wish is that you will have developed a sustainable, long-term plan for your self-esteem. I want you to finish this book knowing that you are more than a patient. You are a person with depth, potential, and a unique story that is still unfolding. Healing is rarely a linear path, and it is rarely easy. But it is possible to find empowerment within the constraints of your health. As we walk through these 12 chapters together, remember that you are the architect of your own experience. You possess the capacity to navigate this, to grow, and to reclaim the confidence that is rightfully yours. Let us begin the work of transforming your mindset, one small win at a time. Introduction. When illness enters your life, it does not simply arrive as a collection of symptoms or a set of medical instructions. It arrives as an uninvited guest that rearranges the furniture of your existence. It alters the way you see the morning light, the way you interact with those you love, and, most significantly, the way you perceive yourself. For many, the experience of chronic illness or a significant health challenge feels like a slow, steady erosion of the self. You may find that your confidence, once a quiet foundation beneath your feet, has become fragile, easily shaken by a bad day or a discouraging test result. The Resilient Spirit, A Practical Guide to Reclaiming Your Confidence and Self-Esteem During Illness is written for anyone who feels that their life has become overshadowed by their diagnosis. It is for the person who is tired of being defined by what they can no longer do, and who is ready to reclaim the parts of their identity that remain vibrant, capable, and worthy. This book is not about curing your condition through sheer willpower or pretending that your challenges do not exist. Instead, it is a guide to navigating the complex psychological terrain of health setbacks, offering a roadmap to help you find agency, empowerment, and a renewed sense of self-worth amidst the reality of your situation. The core conflict: identity and agency. The central struggle of living with illness is often not just the physical pain, but the psychological weight of feeling like you have lost control. We live in a culture that prizes productivity, independence, and bouncing back to normalcy. When your body prevents you from meeting those societal standards, it is common to internalize that struggle as a personal failure. You may begin to equate your value as a human being with your physical functionality. This book addresses the fundamental questions that arise when that equation fails. Who am I if I am not the person I was before? How do I advocate for myself in a system that often treats me like a chart number rather than a person? How can I find joy and purpose when my energy is limited? By shifting your mindset, you can move from a place of passive endurance to one of active, resilient living. This process is not about ignoring your pain, but about integrating your health journey into a larger, more resilient narrative, one where you are the author, not just the subject. Navigating the chapters. To help you navigate this journey, we will walk through 12 distinct stages of transformation. In Chapter 1, we begin by acknowledging the emotional landscape of your diagnosis, validating the shock and grief that often accompany a major health shift. Chapter 2 provides the tools to decouple your identity from your illness, ensuring that you remember who you are beyond your medical labels. In Chapter 3, we introduce the practice of radical self-compassion, helping you dismantle the inner critic that thrives on self-blame. As we move into the practicalities of daily life, Chapter 4 empowers you to navigate the healthcare system with authority, turning medical interactions into true partnerships. Chapter 5 addresses the necessity of managing your energy budget, teaching you how to set boundaries that protect your well-being. Chapter 6 explores the nuances of cultivating a supportive social circle, helping you distinguish between those who drain your spirit and those who bolster it. The second half of the book focuses on internal reframing and growth. Chapter 7 guides you in rewriting your narrative from one of defeat to one of adaptation, while Chapter 8 offers mindfulness and grounding techniques to manage the anxiety of physical pain. In Chapter 9, we examine the anatomy of resilience, teaching you how to find power in small wins. Chapter 10 explores the vital link between physical and emotional healing, showing you how your mindset can actively support your body's needs. Finally, Chapter 11 encourages you to look toward the future by designing a life that incorporates your health reality without being limited by it. We conclude in Chapter 12 by focusing on sustaining your confidence for the long term, ensuring that the tools you have learned become a permanent part of your personal toolkit. A note on your journey. The path to resilience is rarely linear. There will be days when you feel entirely in control and days when you feel as though you have taken 2 steps back. This is not a sign of failure, it is the nature of the terrain. The goal of this book is to provide you with a consistent, reliable structure, a set of psychological anchors, that you can return to whenever the waves of illness feel overwhelming. You are more than your diagnosis. You are more than your limitations. Your spirit, your character, and your capacity to define your own happiness remain within your grasp, even on the hardest days. By engaging with these chapters, you are taking a courageous step toward reclaiming your agency. You have already demonstrated resilience simply by seeking out this book and choosing to look for a way forward. That choice is the first seed of your empowerment. As you turn these pages, I invite you to be gentle with yourself, to be curious about your own capacity for change, and to hold on to the truth that you are worthy of a life that feels authentic, meaningful, and deeply your own. Let us begin the work of reclaiming your spirit. Dedication. This book is dedicated to those who are navigating the quiet, unseen battles of chronic illness with courage and grace. May these pages serve as a reminder that your worth is inherent, your voice is powerful, and your spirit is resilient beyond measure. Acknowledgements. Writing this book has been a journey of deep reflection, and it would not have been possible without the support, wisdom, and encouragement of many individuals who have helped shape these pages. I am deeply grateful to the medical professionals and patient advocates who generously shared their expertise. Your commitment to holistic care and your dedication to empowering patients to take an active role in their health journeys provided the essential foundation for the advocacy strategies outlined in Chapter 4. Thank you for your tireless work in bridging the gap between clinical necessity and human dignity. I owe a debt of gratitude to the psychologists and mindfulness practitioners whose research and clinical insights into resilience and self-compassion informed the core themes of this book. Your work has provided the framework for transforming how we navigate the emotional challenges of chronic illness, and I am honored to build upon your findings. To the individuals who shared their personal stories of illness, growth, and transformation, thank you for your vulnerability. Your willingness to open up about your struggles, from the initial shock of diagnosis to the quiet, daily victories of resilience, breathed life into these chapters. It is your courage that gives this guide its purpose. I want to thank my colleagues and mentors who offered their time, feedback, and encouragement throughout the drafting process. Your belief in the importance of this work kept me focused, and your constructive critiques helped refine the practical tools presented here. Finally, to my family and friends, thank you for being my anchor. Your unconditional love, patience, and unwavering belief in my capacity to complete this project have been my greatest source of strength. You reminded me, through your own actions, of the power of a supportive social circle and the importance of holding on to one's identity beyond the challenges of life. This book is a testament to the resilience we find when we are surrounded by those who truly care. Prologue. The moment the world narrows to the confines of a medical chart, the rhythm of your life changes. It is a subtle shift at first, a hesitation in your step, a persistent fatigue that sleep cannot touch, or a clinical word echoing in a sterile room. Suddenly, the future you had mapped out in bold, confident ink begins to blur. You find yourself standing at the edge of a landscape you never intended to visit, a place where the air feels thinner and the terrain is treacherous. Most people move through life under the quiet assumption of continuity. We expect our bodies to be the reliable vessels that carry us toward our ambitions, our relationships, and our dreams. We take for granted the capacity to wake up, move, think, and engage without a second thought. But when illness enters the narrative, that assumption is shattered. You are left to grapple not only with the physical reality of your symptoms, but with the profound, often silent, erosion of your sense of self. This book is an invitation to reclaim the territory that has been lost. It is a map for the uncharted path of chronic challenge, written for those who have felt the sting of a diagnosis, and the subsequent pressure to diminish their own identity to fit the role of a patient. When we are ill, we are often encouraged to be good patients, to be compliant, quiet, and stoic. We are told to wait for the next test result, the next adjustment in medication, or the next appointment. We are taught to place our lives on hold, as if the illness is the main event, and we are merely the supporting actors in our own bodies. But this approach is a trap. It strips you of your agency at the very moment you need it most. It fosters a mindset of helplessness, where your worth becomes tethered to your symptoms and your progress is measured only by medical metrics. You are more than your diagnosis. You are more than a collection of limitations, or a series of charts. The journey toward resilience is not about fighting your body or forcing it into a state of artificial wellness. It is about something far more radical. It is about integration. It is about learning to inhabit your life with compassion, even when that life looks different than you once imagined. It is about understanding that while your physical circumstances may have changed, your capacity for meaning, joy, and self-worth remains entirely intact. Throughout these pages, we will explore the anatomy of this resilience. We will look at how to untangle your identity from the labels that have been placed upon you, and how to cultivate a practice of radical self-compassion that acts as a shield against the internal critic. We will discuss the art of advocacy, learning to walk into a doctor's office not as a submissive bystander, but as an empowered partner in your own care. We will talk about the energy budget of daily life, the importance of boundaries, and the quiet, persistent power of the small win. This book is structured to guide you through the emotional and practical shifts necessary to thrive. From navigating the initial shock of a diagnosis to designing a future that excites you despite your health reality, each chapter is designed to be a tool in your kit. We will look at how to manage the complexities of social circles, how to use mindfulness to anchor yourself during moments of pain, and how to rewrite the narrative of your health journey from one of defeat to one of profound growth. There is a common misconception that resilience is a trait reserved for the strong, those who never falter, never complain, and never feel the weight of their burden. This is a myth. True resilience is not the absence of struggle, it is the presence of a commitment to yourself in spite of it. It is the ability to acknowledge the ache, the frustration, and the fear, and yet choose to move forward with purpose. It is the courage to define your own version of success, even when the world tells you that your potential is limited. As you read, you may find that some days are easier than others. You may find that some concepts resonate deeply, while others feel like a challenge to implement. That is expected. Healing is not a linear progression, and neither is the process of reclaiming your confidence. It is a practice, a series of daily, intentional choices to honor your needs and protect your spirit. You are the author of your experience. Even when your body feels like a foreign land, your mind remains the seat of your power. This book is here to help you exercise that power. It is here to remind you that you are a complex, multidimensional human being, capable of navigating the most difficult transitions with grace and authority. We are about to embark on a journey of self-discovery. We will peel back the layers of frustration and fatigue to reveal the core of who you are. You do not have to do this alone, and you do not have to accept the limitations others have placed upon you. By the end of this book, you will have the tools to look at your reflection and see, not a patient, but a person, a resilient, capable, and enduring individual who is ready to design a life that is not just manageable, but truly lived. Take a moment to acknowledge where you are right now. The fact that you have opened these pages is your first act of advocacy. It is a declaration that you are ready to reclaim your voice, your confidence, and your spirit. Let us begin. Chapter 1: The Emotional Landscape of Diagnosis. The moment a diagnosis is delivered, the world shifts. Whether it arrives as a sudden crash or a slow, creeping realization, the news acts as a fault line. On one side lies the life you knew, the routine, the assumptions, and the expectations you held for your future. On the other side lies a new, uncharted territory defined by medical terminology, treatment plans, and physical uncertainty. This shift is rarely just a medical event, it is an emotional earthquake. It is perfectly normal to feel as though you have been untethered from your own life. You may experience a whirlwind of reactions, shock, anger, profound sadness, or a strange, hollow numbness. Understanding this landscape is the first step toward reclaiming your agency. You are not failing at being sick, you are reacting to a significant life transition. The anatomy of the initial shock. When we receive a diagnosis, our brains often struggle to reconcile our past identity with our current reality. We are used to our bodies being reliable vessels, tools that allow us to work, play, and engage with the world. When that vessel falters, we feel betrayed. Psychologically, this often mirrors the stages of grief. You might find yourself bargaining, if I just change my diet, this will go away, feeling flashes of rage at the perceived unfairness of it all, or sinking into a deep, quiet depression. The mistake many people make is labeling these feelings as weakness. In reality, they are evidence of your humanity. You are mourning the loss of a version of yourself that felt invincible. Consider the case of Elena, a marathon runner, who was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition that limited her mobility. For weeks, she sat in her living room, staring at her running shoes. She felt as though her identity had been stripped away. She wasn't just grieving her health, she was grieving her independence and her sense of mastery over her body. Her landscape felt barren. By acknowledging that her grief was a natural response to a genuine loss, rather than a character flaw, she eventually began to look at her situation not as a permanent state of defeat, but as a new environment that required different tools. Validating your experience. One of the most common traps during the early stages of a diagnosis is the should trap. I should be stronger than this. I shouldn't feel so overwhelmed by a simple appointment. Others have it worse, so I should just be grateful. These thoughts are the enemies of resilience. They invalidate your lived experience and create an internal environment of shame. Shame thrives in silence and comparison. When you tell yourself you shouldn't feel a certain way, you bottle up your emotions, which only increases the psychological burden of your physical symptoms. Instead, practice radical validation. This means acknowledging your feelings without judging them as good or bad. If you feel scared, say to yourself, I am feeling scared right now, and that makes sense given the uncertainty of this situation. By naming the emotion, you move it from a chaotic internal state to an observable fact. This creates a small, but vital distance between you and the feeling. You are not the fear, you are the person experiencing the fear. The shift from victim to architect. A diagnosis can easily push us into a victim mindset. This is the belief that things are happening to us, and we are powerless to change the outcome. While it is true that you did not choose your illness, you do have a choice in how you inhabit your life moving forward. This is not about positive thinking in a way that ignores reality. It is about proactive engagement. A victim asks, why is this happening to me? An architect asks, given this reality, what are the next best steps for my well-being? Transitioning from a victim to an architect requires a change in perspective. 1. Acknowledge the constraint. You don't have to pretend you are fine. Admit that your health has changed and that there are new limitations. 2. Focus on the controllables. When you feel overwhelmed, your brain is likely focusing on the big picture of your diagnosis, which is often full of unknowns. Narrow your focus to the immediate. What can you do in the next hour? Can you rest? Can you reach out to a friend? Can you organize your medical notes? 3. Claim your voice. Even when your body feels out of control, your voice remains yours. You have the right to ask questions, to express your needs, and to say no to things that drain your limited energy. The danger of the patient label. One of the most insidious aspects of a diagnosis is how quickly the world, and often our own minds, begins to redefine us. You may notice that conversations with friends always pivot to your health. Your internal monologue may start to revolve entirely around symptoms, test results, and limitations. You are a person with a diagnosis, not a diagnosis with a person attached. This distinction is crucial. If you view yourself solely as a patient, you inadvertently give away your authority to the medical system. You become someone to be fixed rather than a person to be supported. In the chapters that follow, we will work on decoupling your identity from your condition. For now, simply observe how often you define your day by your symptoms. If you find that your self-worth is tied to how well or productive you are, it is time to start loosening that knot. Creating a foundation of resilience. Resilience is not a personality trait you are born with, it is a skill set you build. It is the ability to bend without breaking. To begin this process, we must establish a check-in habit. Each day, take 5 minutes to simply sit with yourself, not as a patient, but as a person. Ask yourself, what is one thing I felt today that I haven't acknowledged? Where am I holding tension in my body because of my stress? What is one small thing I did today that was just for me, independent of my health? This is not about fixing the problem immediately, it is about staying present. When we fear the future of our health, we often dissociate from the present. We become so anxious about what might happen, that we miss the capacity we have to navigate what is happening right now. Practical exercise, the reality check journaling. To start shifting your mindset, use this simple journaling exercise for the next 3 days. Do not overthink it, just write what comes to mind. Part 1, the emotional audit. List 3 emotions you felt today related to your health. Don't censor them. E.g., I felt angry that I had to cancel plans. I felt anxious about my upcoming test. I felt relieved that I finally had an answer. Part 2, the validation statement. For each emotion, write a sentence that validates it. E.g., it is normal to feel angry when my plans are disrupted by something out of my control. Part 3, the small win. Identify one thing you did today that helped you or brought you a moment of comfort, no matter how small. Did you drink a glass of water? Did you read a book? Did you breathe deeply for a minute? Write it down. This exercise serves 2 purposes. First, it validates your emotional experience. Second, it trains your brain to notice that, even within the landscape of illness, there is still a you that is capable of acting, feeling, and choosing. The path forward. The emotional landscape of diagnosis is vast and often rugged. You will have days where you feel you have mastered the terrain and days where you feel lost in the fog. That is not a sign of failure. It is the reality of the human experience during a time of crisis. You are entering a period of profound self-discovery. By acknowledging your grief, validating your feelings, and refusing to let your diagnosis become your entire identity, you are already beginning the work of reclaiming your confidence. The goal of this book is not to cure your emotions or make your challenges disappear. The goal is to equip you with the tools to walk through this landscape with your head held high, knowing that while your circumstances have changed, your value, your dignity, and your capacity for growth remain entirely intact. You are at the beginning of a journey that will require patience, but it will also reveal a version of your own strength that you may never have had to call upon before. As you move into the next chapter, remember that you are the primary authority on your own life. Everything that follows is designed to help you exercise that authority, ensuring that even in the face of health challenges, you remain the protagonist of your own story. Take a deep breath. You are here. You are navigating this. And that, in itself, is a victory. Chapter 2, Decoupling your identity from your illness. When you receive a medical diagnosis, it often arrives with a weight that feels suffocating. Suddenly, your life is segmented into before and after. You may find yourself introduced at social gatherings not by your name, your profession, or your interests, but by your condition. Over time, the medical terminology, the symptoms, the side effects, and the limitations, begins to seep into your internal monologue. You stop thinking of yourself as a person who has an illness and start believing that you are the illness. This process is known as identity fusion. While it is a common and understandable psychological response to trauma, it is also a significant barrier to your recovery and self-esteem. When your identity is tethered to your diagnosis, every flare-up, every bad lab result, and every physical limitation feels like a personal failure of character. To reclaim your confidence, you must learn to decouple your inherent worth from your physical state. You are not a patient first, you are a complex, multi-dimensional human being who happens to be navigating a health challenge. The trap of the patient persona. The patient persona is a psychological construct that can feel safe because it provides a clear, albeit narrow, framework for how to act and how to be treated. When you adopt this persona, you might find yourself constantly monitoring your body for signs of distress, talking exclusively about your treatment plan, or withdrawing from hobbies because they don't fit the sick person narrative. This is a protective mechanism. If you define yourself by your illness, you lower the expectations of others and perhaps even yourself. It is a way to manage the fear of being misunderstood. However, this safety comes at a high cost. It shrinks your world until it is only the size of a hospital room or a medicine cabinet. To break free, you must distinguish between your experience and your essence. Your experience includes the pain, the fatigue, and the medical appointments. Your essence includes your values, your sense of humor, your curiosities, your kindness, and your history. Your essence remains intact, even when your experience is difficult. Exercise the Who Am I? Audit. To begin the decoupling process, we need to externalize your identity. Take a piece of paper and draw a circle in the center. Inside the circle, write your name. Now, draw lines radiating outward from the circle like a sun. On each line, write a role, interest, or personality trait that has nothing to do with your health. Do not worry about whether you can currently perform these roles perfectly. Focus on the parts of you that exist independent of your diagnosis. Your list might look like this. The creative: I love to write poetry or paint. The connector: I am a loyal friend who listens well. The intellectual: I enjoy learning about history or science. The caregiver: I enjoy nurturing my plants or pets. The professional: I am a skilled problem solver in my field. When you look at this map, you see a person with depth. If your illness is just one line on that sun, it cannot be the sun itself. When you feel overwhelmed by your health status, return to this map. Remind yourself, today, my physical body is struggling, but I am still the creative, the connector, and the intellectual. Shifting your language. The words you use to describe yourself act as the architecture of your self-esteem. If you frequently say, I am a diabetic, or I am an autoimmune patient, you are reinforcing a singular identity. Try shifting your language to emphasize your agency and your humanity. Instead of I am diagnosis, try I am currently managing diagnosis. I am a person living with diagnosis. My body is dealing with a symptom, but I am focused on activity, a goal. This subtle change in syntax is powerful. It creates distance between the self and the condition. It reminds your brain that the illness is a temporary guest in your life, not the landlord. You are the one in charge of the space, and you decide what other furniture, what other interests and passions occupy your mind. The myth of getting back to normal. Many people spend years waiting to return to their old self. They view their current state as a waiting room, assuming that once they are healed, they will resume their true life. This mindset is dangerous because it devalues the present. The truth is that you will never be exactly who you were before, and that is not necessarily a loss. You are evolving. Resilience is not about returning to a previous version of yourself. It is about integrating your current reality into a stronger, more nuanced identity. Think of your life as a book. Your diagnosis might be a challenging chapter, perhaps even a difficult volume, but it is not the entire story. You are the author. You have the power to decide how to weave this chapter into the broader narrative of your life. Does this chapter represent the end of your growth, or is it the catalyst for a new, deeper understanding of what matters to you? Reclaiming your passions. Illness often steals your energy, but it should not be allowed to steal your curiosity. If your physical limitations prevent you from doing things the way you used to, look for ways to adapt your passions. If you loved hiking but can no longer trek for miles, can you find a local nature spot where you can sit, observe, and photograph the wildlife? If you loved cooking but struggle with the physical demands of standing in the kitchen, can you focus on curating recipes, learning about food science, or hosting a small, low-effort gathering where you share a meal that others help prepare? The goal is not to replicate your old life, but to nurture the parts of you that feel joy. When you engage in activities that are not related to your health, you signal to your brain that you are more than a medical chart. This is a form of cognitive recalibration. It reminds you that your brain is capable of joy, focus, and creativity, regardless of what your body is doing. The role of values in identity. When the body fails, it is easy to lose sight of your why. Your values are the compass that guides your decisions. Unlike your physical health, which can be unpredictable, your values are under your control. If you value kindness, you can practice it even from a hospital bed by sending a supportive text to a friend or offering a smile to a staff member. If you value growth, you can read a book or learn a new skill in small, manageable increments. When you anchor your identity in your values rather than your physical performance, your self-esteem becomes resilient. You no longer feel that your worth is tied to how productive or active you are. You realize that your value is inherent. You are worthy of love, respect, and happiness simply because you exist, not because of what you can accomplish in a day. Navigating the patient label in healthcare. While we are working to decouple your identity from your illness, we must acknowledge that you still have to interact with a medical system that relies heavily on labels. Doctors need to know your diagnosis to treat you effectively. This is the functional side of being a patient. However, you can maintain your authority even within the clinical setting. When you walk into an appointment, do not enter as a passive patient waiting to be fixed. Enter as a consultant on your own body. Bring your questions. Bring your observations. If a doctor refers to you only by your condition, the patient in room 4, kindly remind them of your name. This small act of asserting your identity is a powerful way to reinforce your own sense of self. You are not a diagnosis to be managed, you are a person to be partnered with. Practicing detachment. Detachment is not the same as denial. You are not pretending you are not ill. Instead, you are choosing not to give the illness prime real estate in your mind. Think of your thoughts like a screen. If your illness is a flickering light on that screen, you can choose to look past it to the scenery behind it. When a symptom flares up, acknowledge it. My body is experiencing pain. Then, intentionally shift your focus. Now, I am going to focus on the book I am reading, or I am going to focus on the conversation I am having. This practice of shifting focus prevents the illness from becoming the only thing you perceive. It allows you to remain connected to the world around you, even when your body is demanding attention. Building a non-illness social life. Your social circle may have shifted since your diagnosis. Some people may have drifted away, while others may have become hyper-focused on your health. While support is essential, it is equally important to have spaces where your illness is not the topic of conversation. Seek out environments, online or in person, where you are known for your interests, not your symptoms. Join a book club, a community group, or an online forum dedicated to a hobby you love. In these spaces, you are the person who loves historical fiction, or the person who is great at strategy games. These interactions are vital for your mental health. They serve as a reminder that you are a multifaceted person who belongs in the world, not just a person who belongs in a medical office. The freedom of being more than your diagnosis. Decoupling your identity from your illness is a journey, not a destination. There will be days when the pain or the fatigue makes it difficult to see beyond your symptoms. That is okay. Resilience is not about being perfect, it is about being persistent. When you start to see yourself as a person with a vast, internal landscape, you become less vulnerable to the setbacks of your physical condition. You learn that while your health may be compromised, your character is not. You learn that your passions are not subject to your blood work. You learn that your value is not a variable, but a constant. As you move through this chapter, keep the "Who am I" map in your mind. Whenever you feel yourself shrinking into the patient role, widen your perspective. Look at the other lines on your sun. Remind yourself that you have a life to live, a personality to express, and a purpose to fulfill, all of which exist entirely independent of your medical chart. Practical reflection questions. To wrap up this chapter, take a moment to reflect on the following questions. Write down your answers to solidify your shift in perspective. 1. What is one interest I have neglected because I felt it didn't fit my sick identity? How can I bring a version of that interest back into my life this week? 2. When I introduce myself to new people, how do I describe what I do? If I mention my health, how can I reframe that sentence to focus on my agency? 3. What are 3 personality traits I possess that are entirely separate from my physical health? 4. How can I set a boundary with friends or family who only want to talk about my illness? By answering these questions, you are taking the first concrete steps toward reclaiming your narrative. You are moving from a state of being defined by your circumstances to a state of defining yourself by your choices. You are the protagonist of your life story. A medical diagnosis might be a plot twist, but it is not the theme of your book. The theme is your resilience, your curiosity, and your enduring humanity. Keep that theme at the center of everything you do. As you progress to the next chapter, remember that this process of decoupling is a form of radical self-respect. You are protecting your soul from being overshadowed by your symptoms. You are making room for the person you are, the person you have been, and the person you are still becoming. Embrace this complexity. It is where your strength lies. It is where your healing begins. Chapter 3: The Power of Radical Self-Compassion. When you are navigating the complexities of chronic illness, your internal monologue often becomes your harshest critic. You might find yourself thinking, "If I just pushed harder, I could get through this," or "Why is my body failing me like this?" These thoughts are not merely frustrating, they are corrosive. They erode the very foundation of resilience you are working so hard to build. Radical self-compassion is not a luxury, or a form of self-indulgence. It is a psychological necessity. It is the practice of extending the same level of grace, understanding, and patience to yourself that you would instinctively offer a dear friend in the same situation. When you are ill, your capacity for physical labor may decrease, but your capacity for self-kindness must increase to compensate. The anatomy of the inner critic. To practice self-compassion, you must first identify the voice that sabotages it. The inner critic is that persistent, nagging narrator that interprets physical limitations as personal moral failures. It views a flare-up not as a biological event, but as a lack of discipline or strength. This critic is often a byproduct of a culture that rewards productivity and relentless physical performance. When you are no longer able to meet those external standards, the critic fills the void with judgment. The problem is that self-judgment creates stress, and stress is a known physiological antagonist to healing. By berating yourself for being sick, you are essentially adding emotional weight to an already heavy physical burden. Defining radical self-compassion. Dr. Kristen Neff, a pioneer in the field of self-compassion research, identifies 3 core components: self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. These elements are the building blocks for transforming your internal landscape. 1. Self-kindness versus self-judgment. Self-kindness is the active choice to soothe your own suffering. When you experience a setback, the critical response is to analyze what you did wrong. The compassionate response is to acknowledge that you are hurting and to ask, "What do I need right now to feel comforted?" This might be as simple as resting, drinking water, or stepping away from a stressful task. 2. Common humanity versus isolation. Illness can feel incredibly lonely, leading you to believe that your struggle is unique, or that you are the only one whose body is failing. Radical self-compassion reminds you that suffering is a universal human experience. Recognizing that others, too, navigate pain, fatigue, and uncertainty helps to normalize your experience, stripping away the shame that keeps you isolated. 3. Mindfulness versus over-identification. Mindfulness in this context means observing your thoughts and feelings without being swept away by them. If you feel frustrated, you acknowledge it. I am experiencing frustration right now. You do not need to suppress the emotion, nor do you need to let it define your entire reality. You simply observe it, label it, and allow it to exist without letting it dictate your self-worth. Practical techniques to silence the critic. You do not need to be a meditation expert to cultivate self-compassion. You can start today with these 3 practical, evidence-based techniques. The dear friend exercise. The next time you catch yourself spiraling into self-blame, perhaps because you had to cancel plans or couldn't complete a work project, pause. Take a breath and ask yourself, if my best friend were in this exact situation, what would I say to them? Would you tell them they are lazy? Would you call them a failure? Of course not. You would likely tell them that they are doing their best, that their illness is not their fault, and that they deserve rest. Now, take those exact words and direct them inward. It may feel awkward at first, but the brain responds to compassionate language regardless of the recipient. Practice this until it becomes your default response. The self-compassion break. When you feel overwhelmed by symptoms or emotional distress, use this brief, grounding practice. 1. Acknowledge the moment. This is a moment of suffering. This is the mindfulness component. 2. Connect to humanity. Suffering is a part of the human experience. I am not alone in this. This is the common humanity component. 3. Offer comfort. Place a hand over your heart, feel the warmth, and say, may I be kind to myself. May I give myself the patience I need right now. This is the self-kindness component. This takes less than 60 seconds, but it effectively disrupts the feedback loop of anxiety and judgment. Redefining productivity. In the context of chronic illness, productivity must be redefined. Your current work is not just your professional output, it is your recovery, your self-care, and your emotional regulation. When you manage your symptoms effectively, you are being productive. When you prioritize rest to prevent a crash, you are being productive. By shifting the goalposts, you stop measuring your worth against a version of yourself that is no longer present. You start measuring your worth by your ability to care for your current self. This is a radical act of self-advocacy. Navigating the why me trap. It is natural to wonder why you are facing these health challenges. However, the question why me often leads to a dead end of bitterness. It assumes there is a fair distribution of health, and that your current state is an injustice directed at you personally. Radical self-compassion allows you to shift the question from why me to what now. What now is an empowering question. It moves you out of the role of the victim of circumstance and into the role of the strategist. It acknowledges the reality of your health while looking for the next best step. It allows you to accept your reality without losing your agency. Barriers to self-compassion. You may encounter internal resistance when trying to practice self-compassion. Some people fear that if they are too kind to themselves, they will become soft or lose their drive to get better. This is a common misconception. Research consistently shows that self-compassion actually increases motivation and resilience. When you are not busy fighting your own emotions or hiding from your pain, you have more energy to dedicate to your treatment, your recovery, and your life. Compassion is not an excuse for inaction, it is the fuel for sustainable action. The role of physical touch. The body-mind connection is powerful. When you are stressed, your body reacts with a fight or flight response. You can hack this system using physical touch. When you are feeling emotionally overwhelmed, Placing a hand on your chest or gently rubbing your own arm can signal your nervous system to downregulate. This is not new age fluff, it is biology. Physical touch releases oxytocin, the hormone that promotes feelings of safety and calm. By physically comforting yourself, you are sending a biological message to your brain that says, "You are safe. I am here for you." Exercises for daily integration. To move these concepts from theory into your daily life, commit to the following exercises for the next week. 1. The morning intention. Before you get out of bed, spend 1 minute setting a compassionate intention. For example, today, I will listen to my body and honor its needs without judgment. 2. The evening review. At the end of the day, review your actions through a lens of compassion. If you did not meet a goal, note it without criticism. Ask, what prevented me from reaching that goal, and how can I support myself better tomorrow? 3. The compassionate anchor. Choose a physical object, a stone, a piece of jewelry, or even a specific sticker on your phone, to serve as a reminder. Whenever you touch it, take one deep breath, and offer yourself one thought of kindness. Conclusion. Radical self-compassion is the foundation upon which the rest of your resilience will be built. You cannot build a house on a shaky foundation, and you cannot build a sustainable life with illness while constantly attacking yourself from within. By choosing to be your own ally, you are not changing your diagnosis, but you are fundamentally changing your experience of it. You are shifting from a life of constant internal conflict to a life of internal support. This transition is not instantaneous, it requires practice, consistency, and a willingness to be uncomfortable as you unlearn old habits of self-criticism. As you move forward into the next chapters of this book, where we will discuss navigating the healthcare system, managing your energy, and building a social circle, keep this practice of self-compassion at the forefront. When the healthcare system is frustrating, remember to be kind to yourself. When your energy is low, remember to be kind to yourself. When social interactions become taxing, remember to be kind to yourself. You are more than your diagnosis. You are a person navigating a difficult path, and you deserve your own kindness more than anyone else. Embrace this power. It is the most effective tool you have for reclaiming your life. Chapter 4. Navigating the healthcare system with authority. When you are facing a health challenge, the medical system can often feel like a foreign country where you don't speak the language. You are handed charts, prescriptions, and complex terminology, often while you are already feeling vulnerable and exhausted. It is easy to slip into a passive role, the patient waiting for instructions and hoping for the best. However, reclaiming your confidence begins with a fundamental shift in perspective. You are not just a recipient of care, you are the CEO of your own health journey. Your medical team provides the expertise, but you provide the essential context. They know the science, but you know your life, your values, and your body's unique signals. Navigating the healthcare system with authority does not mean being difficult or demanding. It means being informed, prepared, and intentional. It is about transforming the dynamic from a one-way lecture into a collaborative partnership. The architecture of partnership. Many people feel intimidated by doctors. We are conditioned to view medical professionals as absolute authorities. While their years of training are invaluable, they are human. They have biases, time constraints, and gaps in information. When you approach an appointment as a partnership, you move away from the power over dynamic and toward a power with dynamic. To build this partnership, you must treat your health information as a living document. Start by creating a health portfolio. This is a simple binder or digital folder that contains a chronological summary of your diagnosis and symptoms, a list of all current medications, dosages, and supplements, copies of recent lab results or imaging reports, a log of questions you want to ask at your next visit. When you show up to an appointment with these organized tools, you signal to your provider that you are an active, serious participant in your care. This naturally shifts the tone of the interaction. You are no longer just a person with a problem, you are a teammate with a plan. Mastering the art of the question. One of the most common barriers to effective care is the white coat silence, the moment during an appointment when you have a question, but you feel nervous or think it's not important enough to ask. Authority is built through inquiry. If you don't understand a diagnosis or the rationale behind a treatment plan, you cannot give informed consent. Use the following framework to ensure you leave every appointment with clarity. 1. The why question. Can you help me understand the goal of this treatment? What is the primary outcome we are looking for? 2. The alternatives question. Are there other options for managing this, and what are the trade-offs of each? 3. The life impact question. How will this specific medication or procedure affect my daily energy levels or quality of life? 4. The what-if question. What are the early warning signs that this treatment isn't working, and what is our backup plan? Never apologize for asking questions. Your health is the most important project you will ever manage. If a provider seems rushed or dismissive, acknowledge the constraint by saying, I understand we have limited time, but this is important to me. Can we prioritize these 2 questions today, and perhaps schedule a follow-up call for the others? This is professional, firm, and protects your right to be informed. The power of the second opinion. There is a persistent myth that seeking a second opinion is an act of betrayal against your primary doctor. In reality, it is a standard practice in high-quality medicine. If you are facing a major decision, a complex diagnosis, or a treatment plan that feels misaligned with your life goals, a second opinion is not just a right, it is a responsibility. When you seek another perspective, you aren't saying your first doctor is wrong. You are saying, I want to be as informed as possible before moving forward. Most competent, secure medical professionals welcome a second opinion because they want their patients to feel confident in the care they are receiving. If you decide to seek a second opinion, be transparent. Say to your current doctor, I've been doing some thinking about the proposed surgery, and for my own peace of mind, I would like to get a second opinion. Can you recommend someone in your network, or do you have a colleague who specializes in this specific area? Their reaction to this request will tell you a great deal about their commitment to your well-being. A partner will support your need for clarity. A gatekeeper will try to discourage it. Advocating in the moment. Advocacy isn't always about grand gestures. Often, it is about small, consistent actions taken in the exam room. Bring a second pair of ears. When you are stressed, your ability to process information drops significantly. Bring a friend, partner, or family member to your appointments. Their role isn't to argue for you, it is to take notes and ask the questions you might forget. Afterward, sit down with them and debrief. What did you hear the doctor say about the side effects? Often, 2 people hearing the same conversation will walk away with different takeaways. Practice the pause. If you feel overwhelmed or rushed during an appointment, do not be afraid to pause. Take a literal breath. You can say, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by this information. Can we pause for a moment so I can write this down? This slows the pace of the appointment and prevents you from agreeing to things you haven't fully processed. The wait-and-see strategy. Unless it is a medical emergency, you rarely need to make a life-altering decision on the spot. If a doctor suggests a new treatment, it is perfectly acceptable to say, I need to process this information. Can I take a few days to think about it and call you with my decision? This prevents the impulse decision that often leads to regret or feeling out of control. Defining your health values. To advocate for yourself, you must first define what success looks like for you. For one person with a chronic condition, success might be the ability to walk in the park for 20 minutes. For another, it might be avoiding a specific side effect at all costs. Your doctor is an expert in the clinical metrics, blood pressure, lab numbers, and imaging. You are the expert in the functional metrics, what you need your body to do to feel like you. Before your appointments, write down your functional goals. When you discuss treatment, bring these to the table. My main priority is maintaining my cognitive clarity for my work, or it is very important to me that I remain physically active enough to care for my children. When a provider understands your values, they can tailor their recommendations to align with the life you are trying to live, rather than just the lab results they are trying to fix. Navigating the administrative maze. Part of the frustration of the healthcare system is the administrative burden, insurance, scheduling, referrals, and billing. This can feel like a full-time job. To maintain your resilience, treat this as a logistics task rather than an emotional one. Be the project manager, keep a log of every call you make. Note the date, the name of the person you spoke with, and the outcome. This prevents you from having to explain your history 5 times to 5 different people. Utilize patient portals. Most health systems now have online portals. Learn to use them to access your records, message your care team, and track your history. Having direct access to your data reduces the reliance on phone tag and improves your sense of agency. Don't suffer in silence. If you are struggling with the system, if a referral is lost or a prescription is delayed, be the squeaky wheel. Call, follow up, and ask for a supervisor if necessary. Being polite at the expense of your health is not a virtue. You can be firm, respectful, and persistent all at the same time. When a provider is not a partner. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, you may find that a provider is dismissive, patronizing, or simply not a good fit for your communication style. This is a critical moment for your self-esteem. You have the authority to fire your doctor. If you feel consistently unheard, if your questions are treated as nuisances, or if you feel like a number rather than a person, you are not obligated to stay. Staying in a relationship with a provider who doesn't respect you can erode your confidence and lead to worse health outcomes. Trust your gut. If you leave an appointment feeling smaller than when you arrived, it is time to look for someone who views you as a partner. A note on radical self-compassion in the system. Navigating the healthcare system is exhausting. There will be days when you are too tired to advocate, when you forget to ask the right questions, or when you feel discouraged by the bureaucracy. In these moments, return to the practice of radical self-compassion. You are not failing if you have a bad day, or if you feel overwhelmed by the system. You are a person navigating a complex challenge. If you didn't advocate perfectly today, forgive yourself. You can try again at the next appointment. Your resilience is not defined by how flawlessly you navigate the system, but by your willingness to keep showing up for yourself, one step at a time. Practical exercises for Chapter 4. 1. The Health Portfolio Audit. Dedicate 1 hour this week to organizing your medical records. If you don't have a system, start one. Gather your current medications, a list of your diagnoses, and a list of your upcoming appointments. Write down 3 questions you have been hesitant to ask your doctor. 2. The Value Mapping Exercise. Take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. On the left, write clinical goals, e.g., lower cholesterol, stabilize blood sugar. On the right, write life goals, e.g., have the energy to play with my dog, be able to travel, maintain focus at work. Use this list to prepare for your next medical appointment. 3. The Communication Script Practice. Before your next appointment, practice saying these phrases out loud. I'd like to understand the rationale behind this recommendation. Can we discuss the impact of this on my daily energy levels? I'm not ready to make this decision today. I need to think about it. I feel a bit lost with this diagnosis. Can we break it down into simpler terms? Practicing these aloud lowers the anxiety of saying them in the moment. Summary. Navigating the healthcare system with authority is an essential component of your healing journey. By moving from a passive patient to an active partner, you reclaim your agency and ensure that your care is aligned with your values. Remember that you are the expert on your own life. When you enter the doctor's office with preparation, clear questions, and a focus on your personal goals, you are not just managing an illness, you are advocating for your quality of life. You possess the strength to steer this ship. Even when the waters are choppy, your voice, your questions, and your boundaries are the compass that will guide you toward the care you deserve. Chapter 5: Managing the Energy Budget of Daily Life. When you live with a chronic health challenge, your most precious commodity is no longer time or money, it is energy. In a healthy state, many people operate as if their energy supply is infinite. They push through fatigue, skip meals, and overextend their social calendars without immediate consequence. When your body is compromised, this infinite mindset becomes a fast track to burnout and symptom flare-ups. To reclaim your confidence, you must shift your perspective, view your daily energy as a finite, non-renewable currency. Every task, conversation, and commitment requires a specific withdrawal from your account. If you spend more than you have, you end up in energy debt, which often manifests as increased pain, brain fog, or emotional depletion. Managing this budget is not an act of surrender, it is a tactical strategy for maintaining your agency. The concept of energy accounting. Think of your daily energy as a bank account with a fixed balance that resets each morning. Some days, you may wake up with a full account. Other days, due to poor sleep or symptom spikes, your balance is significantly lower. Your goal is not to force the account to be full every day, but to spend what you have wisely so you don't end up bankrupt by noon. 1. Identify your energy drains. Not all activities are created equal. Some tasks are high cost, requiring significant physical or mental exertion. Others are low cost or even energy neutral. High cost, grocery shopping, hosting guests, navigating complex paperwork, or physical therapy exercises. Low cost, reading, gentle stretching, or short, low-stakes conversations. Energy gaining, activities that replenish your reserves, such as meditation, listening to music, or quiet time in nature. Keep a mental or written log for 3 days. Note which activities leave you feeling depleted and which leave you feeling stable. This is your baseline. Once you know your costs, you can begin to budget. 2. The must-do versus want-to-do filter. When your energy is limited, every item on your to-do list must earn its place. Apply the must-do filter. Must-do, tasks that are essential for your health, safety, or basic livelihood. Want-to-do, tasks that improve your quality of life, but are not urgent. The eliminate category, tasks that neither serve your health nor bring you joy. If your energy balance is low, you must be ruthless about the eliminate category. If a task isn't essential and doesn't contribute to your well-being, it is an unnecessary expense. The art of strategic boundaries. Setting boundaries is often the most difficult aspect of managing your energy. We are conditioned to believe that saying no is selfish. In the context of chronic illness, however, saying no is an act of self-preservation. It is a protective measure that ensures you have enough capacity to show up for the things that truly matter. How to say no without guilt. Guilt arises when we believe we are letting others down. To manage this, shift your focus from what you are denying others to what you are prioritizing for yourself. You are not saying no to a person, you are saying yes to your health. Use these practical scripts to set boundaries with grace and authority. The capacity response. I would love to help with that, but my current health budget doesn't allow for it right now. I need to prioritize rest. The conditional response. I can't commit to that today because I'm managing my energy levels, but I might be able to help next week. Let me check back with you then. The direct response. I appreciate the invitation, but I have to pass this time. I'm focusing on my recovery and need to keep my schedule light. Notice that these responses are clear and firm, but they don't over-explain. You do not owe anyone a detailed medical breakdown of why you cannot attend an event or complete a task. A simple statement of your capacity is sufficient. Pacing, the strategy of intentional rest. Pacing is the practice of spreading activities throughout the day rather than powering through. Many people fall into the boom and bust cycle. They feel a burst of energy, accomplish everything on their list, and then crash for 2 days. This cycle creates a roller coaster of health that erodes your confidence because you feel constantly at the mercy of your symptoms. Implement micro-rest. Instead of waiting until you are exhausted to rest, integrate micro-rests into your schedule. If you have an appointment or a task, schedule a 10-minute period of stillness immediately before and after. This prevents the cumulative buildup of stress and keeps your nervous system regulated. The 80% rule. A helpful heuristic is to aim to use only 80% of your perceived energy each day. By intentionally leaving 20% in the tank, you create a buffer for the unexpected, a sudden symptom flare, a stressful phone call, or a change in plans. This 20% buffer is your insurance policy against burnout. It allows you to feel in control, even when your health is unpredictable. Delegating and outsourcing. Part of reclaiming your agency involves recognizing where you are doing work that others could handle. Many people struggling with illness feel they must maintain their previous standard of living, including all the chores and responsibilities they once managed alone. If you have the resources, outsource high-energy tasks. This could mean using a grocery delivery service, hiring a cleaning professional, or asking a family member to manage a specific errand. If finances are tight, look for community resources or trade tasks with friends. For example, if a friend is a good cook, offer to organize their digital files or provide another service that requires less physical effort in exchange for a meal. Delegation is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of leadership. You are the CEO of your own recovery, and a CEO's job is to delegate tasks to ensure the organization, in this case, your body and mind, continues to function effectively. The emotional cost of overgiving. Overgiving is a common coping mechanism. When we feel powerless because of our illness, we often try to prove our worth or value to others by being the person who helps. We want to show that we are still useful. However, this is a trap. Your value is inherent, not earned through productivity. When you give from a place of depletion, you are not giving your best self, you are giving your exhausted self. By managing your energy budget, you allow yourself the space to engage with others from a place of genuine connection rather than obligation. When you set a boundary, pay attention to the voice of your inner critic. It might say, "You're being lazy," or "They will think you don't care." Recognize these thoughts as symptoms of the old, unhealthy mindset you are working to decouple from your identity. Respond to these thoughts with the radical self-compassion we discussed in Chapter 3. I am choosing to protect my energy so that I can sustain my well-being. This is a brave and necessary decision. Practical exercise, the Energy Budget Worksheet. To put these principles into action, take 15 minutes today to complete this brief assessment. 1. List your top 3 energy drains. What consistently leaves you feeling depleted? 2. List your top 3 energy gains. What makes you feel grounded, calm, or restored? 3. Audit your current week. Look at your calendar. Identify one high-cost activity that you can reschedule, delegate, or simplify. 4. Practice the no. Identify one social or professional obligation you've been dreading. Write down a capacity response and commit to sending it. Moving forward with intent. Managing your energy budget is a lifelong skill. It requires you to be an active observer of your own body and a fierce defender of your needs. There will be days when you get it wrong, when you overspend, crash, and feel the sting of frustration. That is not a failure, it is data. Use that experience to refine your budget for the next day. As you become more intentional with your energy, you will find that your sense of agency grows. You are no longer a passive recipient of your symptoms, you are the architect of your daily life. By setting boundaries, pacing your efforts, and honoring your limits, you are building a life that accommodates your current reality while preserving the space you need to heal, grow, and reclaim your sense of self. In the next chapter, we will discuss how to apply these boundaries to your social circle, ensuring that the people you surround yourself with understand and respect the new, empowered version of you. Your energy is your power, treat it as such. Chapter 6. Cultivating a supportive social circle. Illness often acts as a filter for your social life. When your health changes, your relationships inevitably shift. Some people rise to the occasion, offering steady support and genuine empathy, while others drift away, overwhelmed by their own discomfort, or an inability to navigate the complexities of chronic illness. This chapter is not about keeping everyone happy, it is about curating a circle that bolsters your confidence and respects your reality. You are not a burden, and your worth is not measured by how easy you are to be around. Building a supportive social circle is an act of self-preservation that requires intentionality, boundary setting, and clear communication. The geography of your social circle. Think of your social world in concentric circles. At the center is you. The first ring consists of your primary support system, those who provide emotional, practical, and physical help. The second ring holds friends and extended family who provide companionship and lightheartedness. The outer ring is for acquaintances, colleagues, and neighbors. During a health crisis, many people find their circles shrinking. This is often a natural, and sometimes necessary, pruning process. You no longer have the energy budget, as discussed in Chapter 5, to maintain superficial relationships that drain you. Your goal is to move from a wide, shallow circle to a smaller, deeper one. Identifying your safe harbor people. Not everyone is equipped to support someone navigating chronic illness. Some people are fair-weather friends, while others are anchors. An anchor is someone who listens without trying to fix. They understand that your symptoms are a reality, not a puzzle for them to solve with unsolicited medical advice. Respects your energy limits. If you cancel plans, they respond with grace rather than guilt. Views you as a whole person. They talk to you about movies, books, or shared interests, not just your latest blood test results or pain levels. Offers reliable, specific help. Instead of saying, "Let me know if you need anything," they say, "I'm going to the grocery store, what can I pick up for you?" If you find that certain people consistently leave you feeling drained, misunderstood, or guilty, it is time to reevaluate their placement in your circles. You do not necessarily need to cut them out entirely, but you may need to move them to the outer ring. The art of communicating your needs. One of the greatest challenges of illness is the invisible nature of many conditions. Because you may look fine on the outside, friends and family often struggle to gauge how much you are struggling on the inside. They cannot read your mind, and they often fear saying the wrong thing. You can bridge this gap by being your own spokesperson. Proactive communication reduces the anxiety others feel and ensures you get the support you actually need. 1. Be specific about limitations. General statements like, "I'm not feeling great," are often misinterpreted. Be clear and actionable. Example, "I'd love to see you, but I have very low energy today. If we keep it to a short, quiet visit at my place, I'd love the company." 2. Direct the conversation. Sometimes, people talk about your illness because they don't know what else to talk about. If you want a break from the medical narrative, take the lead. Example, "I really appreciate your concern about my treatment, but I've spent all day focusing on my health. Could we talk about that new book you mentioned instead?" 3. Teach them how to help. People often want to help, but don't know how. Give them a menu of options. Example, "I'm having a tough week. It would really help if you could run a quick errand, or even just send me a funny text once a day to keep my spirits up. Distancing from toxic influences. Toxic interactions often manifest as toxic positivity or blatant invalidation. You may encounter people who say things like, "Everything happens for a reason," "Have you tried yoga?" or "You just need to stay positive and you'll get better." While these comments are often well-intentioned, they are deeply damaging. They imply that your illness is a result of a personal failure or a lack of effort. This is the antithesis of the radical self-compassion we explored in Chapter 3. When you encounter this, don't justify your reality. You do not owe anyone a defense of your diagnosis or your recovery process. Use a pivot statement. "I understand you're trying to help, but that comment makes me feel like my experience isn't being heard. Let's change the subject." Limit exposure. If a person consistently invalidates your experience despite your feedback, it is time to limit your contact with them. Your mental health is more important than their comfort. Fostering connections that bolster confidence. Confidence is often restored through reflection, seeing yourself through the eyes of people who truly value you. Seek out connections that remind you of who you were before your diagnosis and who you are becoming now. Join peer support groups. There is a specific, profound relief in being around people who get it without needing an explanation. Whether online or in person, connecting with others who share your health challenges can provide validation that friends and family simply cannot offer. These groups provide a space where you are not the sick one, but a peer among equals. Engage in low-stakes socializing. If high-energy social gatherings feel overwhelming, opt for low-stakes interactions. A quick phone call, a shared online game, or a brief walk in the park can maintain intimacy without taxing your physical or emotional resources. Cultivate legacy friendships. Invest time in the friends who have known you the longest, the ones who remember your history, your humor, and your passions. These relationships serve as a vital link to your identity, reminding you that your illness is only one chapter in a much larger story. Practical exercises for social health. To put these principles into practice, try these 3 exercises. 1. The circle audit. Draw 3 concentric circles on a piece of paper. In the center, write your name. In the first ring, write the names of the people who provide you with genuine support. In the second, write those who are pleasant but don't need to know the intimate details of your health. In the outer ring, list the people who consistently drain your energy or invalidate your experience. Be honest with yourself about where everyone belongs. 2. The scripting technique. Write down 3 standard responses to the unsolicited advice or toxic positivity you encounter most often. Practice saying them in the mirror until they feel natural. Having a pre-planned response prevents you from being caught off guard and feeling forced to defend yourself. 3. The energy-based invitation. The next time you want to see a friend, issue an invitation that includes a built-in out. Example: "I'd love to grab coffee this weekend. Let's pencil it in, but I'll check in with you the morning of to make sure my energy is up to it. If I need to reschedule, I hope you understand." This protects your boundaries and lets your friend know that your cancellation is not a rejection of them, but a necessity of your health. Conclusion. Cultivating a supportive social circle is not about excluding people for the sake of it. It is about creating an environment where you can thrive despite your health challenges. By curating your relationships, communicating your needs with clarity, and prioritizing those who offer genuine support, you reclaim a sense of agency over your life. Remember, you are the architect of your support system. You have the right to curate your environment to protect your peace and foster your resilience. As you move forward, look for the people who look at you and see not just a diagnosis, but the multifaceted, resilient individual that you are. Self-reflection prompt: which relationship in your life currently feels the most supportive, and what specific action does that person take that makes you feel valued? Can you identify one relationship that consistently leaves you feeling depleted? And what is one small boundary you could set to protect your energy? Chapter 7. Reframing the narrative of your health journey. We are all storytellers. From the moment we wake until we drift off to sleep, our brains are constantly constructing a narrative to explain our experiences. When you are healthy, this narrative often feels effortless, a simple story of daily tasks, social interactions, and future plans. However, when illness enters the picture, that narrative often shatters. The story becomes one of before and after, of losses and limitations, and of a body that feels like a betrayer rather than a partner. If your current internal narrative is built on the foundation of defeat, your emotional reality will inevitably reflect that. The way you describe your health journey to yourself determines the level of resilience you can access. If you view your life as a tragedy where you are the victim, you will feel powerless. If you view it as a story of adaptation and growth, you open the door to agency. This chapter is about picking up the pen and rewriting the script. The power of cognitive reframing. Cognitive reframing is a psychological technique rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. It does not mean positive thinking in the sense of ignoring reality or pretending that pain does not exist. That would be toxic positivity, which only serves to invalidate your genuine suffering. Instead, reframing is about looking at the same set of facts and choosing a perspective that is both accurate and empowering. Think of it as looking at a painting. If you stand 2 inches away, all you see is a confusing blur of dark, heavy brushstrokes. If you step back, you might see that those dark strokes are actually the shadows that give the painting depth and contrast, highlighting the brighter colors elsewhere. When you face a health challenge, your brain is naturally inclined to focus on the dark strokes, the limitations, the fatigue, and the uncertainty. Reframing asks you to step back and look at the whole canvas. Identifying your default script. Before you can rewrite your story, you must identify the one you are currently telling. Most of us have a default script that runs on a loop, especially during difficult days. Common default scripts include the loss narrative. I used to be able to hike 5 miles, now I can barely walk to the mailbox. My life is getting smaller. The betrayal narrative. My body has failed me. I cannot trust it, and I am trapped in a broken vessel. The burden narrative. Because I am sick, I am a drain on my family and friends. I have nothing to offer anymore. Take a moment to write down your current narrative. Do not censor yourself. Be honest about the anger, the grief, and the frustration. Once you see these thoughts on paper, they lose some of their power. They are no longer absolute truths. They are simply sentences you have been repeating to yourself. The art of the and. The most effective way to reframe a negative narrative is to introduce the word and. It is a small conjunction that bridges the gap between reality and possibility. Instead of, I am sick, so I am useless. Try, I am managing a chronic illness, and I am still a person who contributes value to my family through my presence and my wisdom. Instead of, I lost my ability to work full-time, so my career is over. Try, my career trajectory has changed, and this provides me with the space to explore new ways of using my skills that align with my current energy levels. The and acknowledges the hardship while refusing to let it be the end of the sentence. It creates a space for nuance, allowing you to hold both your pain and your potential at the same time. Shifting from why me to what now. Why me is a question that leads to a dead end. It is a search for justice in a world that is often inherently unfair. It keeps you tethered to the past, looking for a reason or a culprit for your condition. What now is a question of forward motion. It acknowledges your current state and asks for the next step. This is the essence of resilience. Consider the story of Kerry, a graphic designer who developed a condition that caused chronic tremors in her hands. Her initial narrative was, "I am a designer who can no longer design. My identity is gone." She spent months in deep depression. After working with a counselor, she began to reframe her story. She shifted from "I can no longer design" to "I am a creative professional who is learning to use digital tools that don't require manual precision." She moved from "my career is over" to "my career is evolving." By changing her narrative, she didn't magically cure her tremors, but she did unlock the mental energy required to learn new software, eventually finding a niche in creative direction that played to her strengths rather than her limitations. Rewriting the hero's journey. In literature, the most compelling stories are not about people who never face challenges. They are about people who face immense obstacles and are transformed by them. You are the protagonist of your own life, and your health journey is the inciting incident of your current chapter. To rewrite your narrative, use these 3 steps. 1. Acknowledge the adversary. Name the challenge clearly. Do not minimize it. If you have a chronic pain condition, call it by its name. If you are struggling with mobility, state it. Clarity removes the fear of the unknown. You are not falling apart, you are navigating a complex health condition. 2. Identify the adaptation. Every day, you are making choices to adapt. Every time you rest when you need to, ask for help, or research a new treatment, you are taking an action. These are not signs of weakness, they are acts of strategy. Your adaptation is your superpower. 3. Define the growth. What have you learned about yourself that you wouldn't have known otherwise? Perhaps you have discovered a depth of empathy for others, a capacity for patience, or a talent for setting boundaries that you never possessed before. These are not silver linings, they are the hard-won spoils of your journey. Practical exercise, the narrative audit. Set aside 20 minutes this week for a narrative audit. Use a journal to complete the following prompts. Current narrative. What is the story I tell myself when I have a bad health day? E.g., I am failing. Evidence review. What is the evidence against that story? E.g., I am not failing. I am practicing self-care by resting so I can recover. The empowered perspective. If I were a friend looking at my situation with compassion, what story would I tell about me? E.g., my friend is navigating a very difficult physical challenge with grace and is doing their best to prioritize their health. Rewrite your current narrative into your empowered perspective. Keep this new sentence on a sticky note or in your phone. Whenever the old, defeatist script begins to play, read your new narrative aloud. The danger of comparison. One of the biggest hurdles to a healthy narrative is the habit of comparing your behind-the-scenes footage with everyone else's highlight reel. When you see others on social media or in your community who seem to be thriving despite their health issues, it is easy to adopt a narrative of "I am not doing enough." Remember, every person's body, biology, and life circumstances are unique. There is no right way to be ill, and there is no timeline for your growth. Reframing your narrative requires you to silence the external noise. Your story does not need to look like anyone else's. It only needs to be true to your lived experience. Embracing the non-linear path. A common trap in narrative building is the desire for a triumph ending. We want a story where we overcome the illness, return to our old selves, and live happily ever after. But for those with chronic conditions, that ending may not be available. This is where you must rewrite the definition of success. In a traditional story, success is winning. In a resilience-based story, success is endurance, adaptation, and integration. If you can hold onto your sense of humor on a day when you feel terrible, that is a success. If you can communicate your needs to a loved one without feeling guilty, that is a success. If you can wake up and decide to be kind to yourself despite the pain, that is a profound success. By reframing your daily life, you stop waiting for the cure to begin your life. You begin to see that your life is happening now, in the midst of the struggle, and that you are the architect of your experience. The role of language. The language you use matters. Words are the building blocks of thought. Instead of saying, I have to go to the doctor, try I am choosing to prioritize my health. Instead of I am stuck in bed, try I am resting to restore my energy. Instead of I am fighting my illness, try I am managing my health. Fighting often implies a battle where someone must lose. Managing implies a partnership, a strategy, and a long-term commitment to balance. Small shifts in language create large shifts in your nervous system. When you use empowering language, you signal to your brain that you are in control, even when the circumstances feel chaotic. The narrative of integration. As you progress through this book, you will find that the narrative you are building is one of integration. You are not trying to hide your illness or pretend it doesn't exist. You are weaving it into the tapestry of your life. It is like a musician playing a piece of music. The illness is a minor key that runs through the composition. It adds a somber, perhaps haunting tone to the melody. But the song is not only the minor key. It is the tempo, the rhythm, the harmony, and the silence between the notes. By accepting the presence of that minor key, you can compose a much richer, more complex, and more beautiful piece of music than you could have if you were only playing in a major key. Summary: your story is still yours. You did not choose to have a health challenge, but you do choose the story you tell about it. You are not the victim of your circumstances, you are the author of your response to them. Every time you choose to reframe a negative thought, every time you choose to view your adaptation as a strength, and every time you choose to speak to yourself with kindness, you are reclaiming your power. You are building a narrative that can hold the weight of your reality, while leaving enough room for your humanity, your growth, and your future. As you move forward, keep the pen in your hand. When the pages get messy, and they will, remember that a compelling story is never about perfection. It is about the courage to keep writing, the wisdom to edit, and the resilience to turn the page. Reflection questions for Chapter 7. 1. Identify your default script. When you feel overwhelmed by your health, what is the first sentence that comes to your mind? Write it down. 2. Challenge the script. What is one piece of evidence that contradicts that negative thought? 3. Practice the, and take your current most frustrating limitation, and write a sentence about it that includes the word, and adding a piece of your inherent value or agency. 4. Language check. Identify 3 phrases you use regularly that make you feel like a victim. What are 3 neutral or empowering phrases you can use instead? 5. Visualize success. If you were to look back on this year from the future, what is one small win or adaptation you would be proud to say you accomplished, regardless of your physical symptoms? By completing these exercises, you are actively moving from the role of a passive observer of your illness to the active protagonist of your life. You are not just surviving, you are crafting a narrative that honors your past, respects your present, and leaves the door open for a meaningful future. Chapter 8. Mindfulness and grounding in times of pain. When you live with chronic illness, pain is rarely just a physical sensation. It is a loud, insistent signal that demands your full attention. It colors your mood, dictates your schedule, and often triggers a spiral of what ifs. You may find yourself bracing for the next flare-up, mourning the physical freedom you once had, or feeling a sense of betrayal by your own body. While you cannot always control the presence of pain, you can change your relationship with it. Mindfulness is not about thinking positive or pretending the pain isn't there. It is about creating enough mental space between you and your symptoms so that the pain no longer defines your entire existence. By grounding yourself in the present moment, you reclaim the territory of your mind, even when your body feels like a battleground. The trap of future tripping. The most common psychological response to physical pain is catastrophizing. This is the brain's evolutionary attempt to protect you by predicting the worst-case scenario. When a sharp pain hits, your mind might jump to, "This will never end, I'll never be able to work again," or "My condition is getting worse." This mental projection creates a secondary layer of suffering, anxiety. While the pain is a biological fact, the fear of the future is a mental construct. When you future trip, you are essentially suffering twice, once from the actual sensation in your body, and again from the imagined horrors of tomorrow. Mindfulness acts as an anchor. It pulls you out of the turbulent waters of the future and places you firmly on the solid ground of the now. In the present moment, you are rarely dealing with the entire history or future of your illness. You are simply dealing with a single sensation, in a single breath. The art of non-judgmental observation. A powerful technique for managing pain is to shift from being a victim of your symptoms to an observer of them. This is often called diffusion. Instead of saying, "I am in pain," try shifting your language to, "I am experiencing a sensation of pain." This small linguistic change creates a vital distance. It reminds you that you are the container, the person experiencing the sensation, rather than the sensation itself. Practical exercise, the body scan for neutrality. When you feel overwhelmed by discomfort, try this brief exercise. 1. Find a comfortable position. You do not need to sit in a formal meditation pose. If you are in bed or a chair, simply ensure you are supported. 2. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. 3. Scan your body. Start at your toes and slowly move upward. Instead of looking for what hurts, look for what is neutral. Perhaps your left earlobe feels fine, or your right big toe is comfortable. 4. Label the sensation. If you encounter an area of pain, name it objectively. Instead of, "This burning is unbearable," say, "There is a sensation of heat in my lower back." 5. Breathe into the space. Imagine your breath moving around the area of pain rather than crashing into it. The goal here isn't to make the pain disappear. The goal is to prove to your nervous system that your entire body is not under attack. By identifying the parts of you that are not hurting, you remind your brain that you are still intact. Grounding techniques for moments of overwhelm. When pain spikes, your nervous system may enter fight or flight mode. Your heart rate increases, your breathing becomes shallow, and your muscles tense up, which ironically makes physical pain feel more intense. Grounding techniques are physical hacks that signal to your brain that you are safe in this immediate moment. The 5-4-3-2-1 method. This is a sensory reset that pulls your focus away from internal suffering and toward the external environment. 5 things you can see. Look around the room. Notice the texture of the wall, the way light hits a surface, or the color of a book cover. 4 things you can touch. Feel the fabric of your clothes, the coolness of a tabletop, or the weight of your own hands in your lap. 3 things you can hear. Listen for the hum of a refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic, or the rhythm of your own breath. 2 things you can smell. If you cannot smell anything, imagine your favorite scent, fresh coffee, rain, or lavender. 1 thing you can taste. Focus on the lingering taste in your mouth, or take a sip of water. By engaging all 5 senses, you force your brain to process data from the world around you, effectively turning down the volume on the pain signals coming from within. The drop the anchor technique. If you find yourself caught in a storm of anxious thoughts about your health, use the drop the anchor technique developed in acceptance and commitment therapy. 1. Acknowledge your thoughts and feelings. Say to yourself, "I am noticing that I am feeling anxious about my pain." 2. Come back into your body. Press your feet into the floor. Notice the weight of your body in your chair. Move your fingers. 3. Engage in the world. Look around and name 3 things you see. This technique is portable. You can do it in a doctor's waiting room, in the middle of a grocery store, or in the quiet of your bedroom at 3 a.m. It does not solve the underlying medical issue, but it prevents the issue from hijacking your emotional state. Embracing the soft belly. When we are in pain, we instinctively harden. We clench our jaws, tighten our shoulders, and hold our breath. This arming consumes a massive amount of energy and often amplifies the perception of pain. Try the soft belly practice. As you inhale, imagine your belly expanding like a balloon, soft and receptive. As you exhale, consciously release the tension in your jaw, your tongue, and your shoulders. Repeat this for 3 to 5 breaths. By consciously choosing softness over tension, you are sending a physiological message to your brain that you are not in mortal danger. This reduces the threat response and allows your nervous system to regulate more effectively. The power of micro-mindfulness. You do not need to set aside 30 minutes for a silent retreat to practice mindfulness. In fact, for those with chronic pain, micro-mindfulness is often more sustainable. Micro-mindfulness is the practice of being fully present during mundane tasks. When you wash your hands, feel the temperature of the water. When you drink a glass of water, notice the texture of the glass and the sensation of swallowing. When you walk to the bathroom, notice the feeling of your feet meeting the ground. These tiny moments of presence act as reset buttons throughout your day. They keep you anchored in the reality of the present, where you have agency, rather than in the future, where you feel powerless. Addressing the fear of missing out on healing. A common concern is, if I accept my pain, am I giving up on getting better? This is a misconception. Acceptance is not resignation. You can accept the current reality of your symptoms while simultaneously advocating for the best possible medical care, as discussed in Chapter 4. In fact, when you stop fighting the reality of your current state, you free up the mental energy required to make clear, informed decisions about your treatment. When you are panicked and overwhelmed, you are less likely to communicate effectively with your doctors or make choices that align with your long-term wellness. Mindfulness gives you the clarity to see your illness as a circumstance, not a character flaw or a permanent identity. It allows you to navigate the ups and downs of your health journey with a steadier hand. Summary: the path to stability. Mindfulness is an anchor, not a cure. Use it to manage the emotional weight of your symptoms. Distance yourself from the pain. Use objective language to describe what you feel rather than defining yourself by the sensation. Use grounding techniques. When the fight or flight response kicks in, use the 5-4-3-2-1 method to pull your brain back to the present. Softening is a strategy. Consciously releasing physical tension prevents arming and saves your energy. Acceptance fuels action. By accepting the current moment, you clear the mental fog, allowing you to be a more effective advocate for your own healing. Pain is a difficult companion, but it does not have to be the pilot of your life. By practicing these tools, you are building a resilient interior space, a sanctuary that remains calm, even when the external conditions of your health are stormy. In the next chapter, we will discuss how to track your progress through small wins, ensuring that even on your most difficult days, you are still moving forward. Chapter 9: The Anatomy of Resilience and Small Wins. Resilience is often misunderstood as a rigid, steel-like quality, the ability to withstand immense pressure without bending or breaking. In the context of chronic illness, this definition is not only inaccurate, it is exhausting. If you view resilience as a state of constant, unwavering strength, you are setting yourself up for failure. When your body is in pain or your energy is depleted, standing firm is often physically and emotionally impossible. A more accurate anatomy of resilience, especially when navigating health challenges, is closer to the concept of antifragility or flexibility. It is the ability to bend, adapt, and most importantly, to find momentum in the wake of setbacks. Resilience is not about how much you can endure. It is about how you recover your sense of agency after the storm. The primary mechanism for this recovery is the deliberate, strategic focus on small wins. The psychology of micro-progress. When you are dealing with a health condition, your brain often defaults to a gap analysis. You compare your current state to your past self, or to an idealized version of health. This creates a massive psychological gap that feels impossible to bridge. When you focus solely on the distance between where you are and where you want to be, you inadvertently signal to your brain that you are failing. Small wins are the antidote to this cycle. They work by triggering the brain's reward system, the release of dopamine. Every time you identify a goal, however minuscule, and achieve it, you reinforce the neural pathways associated with competence and mastery. You are essentially teaching your brain that you are still an active participant in your life, rather than a passive observer of your illness. In the early stages of recovery or management, a win should not be measured by productivity or traditional metrics of success. A win is any intentional action that aligns with your values and moves you toward self-care. Defining your win. To build resilience, you must learn to recalibrate your internal scoreboard. If you are having a high-pain day, a win might be as simple as drinking a glass of water, responding to one email, or practicing 5 minutes of deep breathing. On a better day, it might be taking a short walk or engaging in a hobby you've neglected. The anatomy of a small win consists of 3 parts. 1. Intention. You consciously decide to do something, no matter how small. 2. Execution. You perform the action. 3. Acknowledgement. You pause to recognize that you did what you set out to do. This third step is the most frequently skipped. Many people with chronic illness dismiss their small achievements because they feel they should be doing more. They think, I only managed to wash the dishes, that's not an accomplishment, that's basic maintenance. This perspective is a trap. When you are fighting a battle with your own biology, basic maintenance is a victory. By acknowledging the win, you transform a chore into a statement of agency. You are saying, I am capable of influencing my environment, even in small ways. The non-linear nature of healing. One of the greatest challenges to resilience is the non-linear nature of health. You will have days where you feel you have made significant progress, followed by days where you feel you have regressed to square one. This 2 steps forward, 1 step back pattern is not a sign that you are failing. It is the standard operating procedure for chronic health journeys. Resilience is the ability to remain stable during the 1 step back phase. It requires a shift in perspective. Instead of viewing a bad day as a loss of progress, view it as data. Ask yourself, what did I learn about my limits today? What self-care tool did I use to get through the discomfort? How can I be kinder to myself tomorrow based on what I experienced today? When you treat setbacks as information rather than failure, you prevent the emotional spiral that often accompanies a flare-up. Resilience is essentially the capacity to keep showing up, even when the results are not immediately visible. Building a wins journal. To internalize this habit, I recommend the practice of keeping a wins journal. This is not a gratitude journal, though gratitude is a component. This is a record of your agency. At the end of each day, write down 3 things you did that contributed to your well-being or your sense of self. Keep the language simple and direct. I called my doctor to clarify my medication instructions. I chose to rest instead of pushing through the fatigue, which helped me avoid a crash. I listened to my favorite podcast for 20 minutes, which improved my mood. Over time, this journal serves as a tangible record of your resilience. On days when you feel overwhelmed or hopeless, you can look back at your entries and see objective evidence of your persistence. It proves that you are not just a patient, you are an active manager of your health. The role of micro-habits. Small wins are most effective when they are paired with micro-habits. Micro-habits are tiny behaviors that take less than 2 minutes to perform. Because they are so small, they are nearly impossible to fail at, which makes them perfect for those with limited energy. For example, if you want to improve your physical health, don't set a goal to exercise for 30 minutes. Set a micro-habit to put on my workout clothes. Often, the act of changing is the hardest part. Once you are dressed, you might find you have the energy to do a light stretch. If you don't, you have still achieved a win by putting on the clothes. This is not about tricking yourself, it is about lowering the barrier to entry. Resilience is built on the momentum of showing up for yourself consistently. By creating micro-habits, you ensure that even on your most difficult days, you can maintain a connection to your goals. Overcoming the all-or-nothing mindset. The primary obstacle to recognizing small wins is the all-or-nothing mindset, the belief that if you cannot do something perfectly or completely, it is not worth doing at all. This mindset is a byproduct of the pressure we place on ourselves to return to our pre-illness level of functioning. When you notice yourself thinking in extremes, "I didn't clean the whole house, so the day is wasted," pause and apply the good enough principle. The good enough principle acknowledges that in the context of chronic illness, your best will fluctuate. On a high-energy day, your best might be cleaning the whole house. On a low-energy day, your best might be clearing off one counter. Both are equally valid because both represent you engaging with your life to the best of your ability in that moment. Integrating small wins into your identity. As you continue to stack these small wins, you will notice a shift in your self-perception. You will move away from the identity of a patient and toward the identity of a manager. A patient waits for instructions and hopes for improvement. A manager takes stock of their resources, assesses their environment, makes decisions, and tracks their results. By focusing on small wins, you are taking a managerial role in your own life. You are the CEO of your health journey, and your daily actions are the small, strategic moves that ensure the long-term success of the organization. This shift is empowering. It removes the sense of helplessness that often accompanies a diagnosis. When you are focused on what you can do, you have less mental bandwidth to worry about what you cannot do. This is not about ignoring reality. It is about choosing where to direct your limited focus. The anatomy of a setback. Even the most resilient person will experience days where they feel they have no wins to record. On these days, the goalposts must shift again. Your win might be simply getting through the day without berating yourself for your lack of productivity. If you are experiencing a particularly difficult period, redefine winning as surviving with self-compassion. If you can navigate a tough day without falling into a cycle of self-blame or despair, that is a massive victory. It is the victory of emotional regulation over reactive suffering. Actionable steps for this week. To begin implementing the anatomy of resilience in your daily life, try these 3 steps. 1. The morning check-in. Before you start your day, assess your current energy level on a scale of 1 to 10. Based on that number, identify one micro-win that is achievable. Keep it small, smaller than you think you need. 2. The midday pause. At some point during the day, check in with your progress. If you feel overwhelmed, stop. Take a deep breath and acknowledge that you are doing the best you can with the information and energy you have right now. 3. The evening reflection. Before bed, write down your 1 to 3 small wins in your journal. Resist the urge to judge them as not enough. Acknowledge them as proof of your persistence. Why this works? This approach works because it honors the reality of your situation while refusing to let that reality dictate your worth. You are not ignoring your symptoms, you are building a life around them. The anatomy of resilience is not built in grand gestures. It is not found in a sudden, miraculous recovery or a dramatic display of willpower. It is found in the quiet, consistent act of choosing yourself over and over again in the face of uncertainty. Every time you acknowledge a small win, you are building a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. You are proving that while your circumstances may have changed, your capacity to find meaning, purpose, and a sense of achievement has not. As you move forward, keep your eyes on the small steps. The path to empowerment is not a sprint toward a finish line, it is a steady, mindful walk. By celebrating the small wins, you ensure that you don't just endure your journey, you navigate it with dignity, purpose, and growing confidence. Reflecting on your progress. As you conclude this chapter, take a moment to look back at the chapters you have already completed. You have moved from the shock of diagnosis to the practice of self-compassion, from navigating the healthcare system to setting boundaries. You have already achieved dozens of small wins. The skills you have learned are cumulative. They build upon one another, creating a foundation that supports you even when the physical symptoms of your illness are at their most challenging. The next time you feel that your progress has stalled, remember the anatomy of resilience. You are not stagnant. You are adapting. You are learning. You are managing. And most importantly, you are still here, finding ways to make your life your own. That, in itself, is the greatest win of all. Putting it into practice, the wins exercise. To solidify this practice, I invite you to perform this exercise immediately. Identify, list 3 things you have done today, however small, that were helpful to you. E.g., I drank a full glass of water, I sat in the sun for 5 minutes, I read 1 page of this book. Validate, write a sentence affirming that these actions mattered. E.g., by drinking water, I supported my body's need for hydration. That was a win. Commit, choose 1 micro habit you can perform tomorrow to create a win for yourself. Keep it so small that it feels almost silly to skip it. By practicing this, you are not just reading about resilience, you are building it. You are transforming your mindset from one that waits for healing to one that actively contributes to it. This is the essence of reclaiming your life. You are the architect of your own experience, and with every small win, you are laying another brick in the foundation of your future. Remember, resilience is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of progress, no matter how small that progress may appear to others. Your journey is yours alone, and every step, no matter how short, counts. Keep tracking those wins. Keep showing up for yourself. You are doing the work, and the work is changing you. Chapter 10, Integrating Physical and Emotional Healing. For years, Western medicine operated under a rigid divide. The physical body was a machine to be repaired by doctors, while the mind was a separate entity, often left to the domain of therapists or clergy. Today, we understand that this separation is a myth. Your body and your mind are not 2 different rooms in a house, they are the house itself. Every thought you harbor triggers a chemical cascade in your physiology, and every physical sensation informs the narrative you tell yourself about your worth and your future. Integrating physical and emotional healing is not about thinking your illness away. It is about recognizing that your emotional state creates the environment in which your body heals. When you are in a constant state of fight or flight, your body prioritizes immediate survival over long-term repair. By intentionally cultivating emotional regulation, you provide your nervous system with the safety it needs to focus its resources on recovery, maintenance, and stability. The bidirectional pathway. The connection between your mental state and physical symptoms is bidirectional. Chronic pain, for example, often leads to frustration and anxiety. This emotional distress, in turn, increases your sensitivity to pain, creating a loop where physical discomfort fuels emotional turmoil, and emotional turmoil amplifies the physical sensation. Breaking this loop requires a deliberate strategy of bottom-up and top-down regulation. Top-down approaches involve using your conscious mind, through reframing, meditation, and intentional focus, to influence your body's stress response. Bottom-up approaches involve using physical interventions, such as breath work, movement, or sensory grounding, to calm the brain and nervous system. The physiology of emotional safety. When you feel threatened by a diagnosis or a flare-up, your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, activates. This triggers the release of cortisol and adrenaline. In small doses, this is helpful. In the context of chronic illness, where the threat is always present, this becomes a state of chronic inflammation. To counteract this, You must teach your body that it is safe, even when it is sick. This is the essence of nervous system regulation. You are not trying to eliminate the reality of your symptoms. You are trying to minimize the secondary stress response that makes those symptoms harder to bear. Actionable habit, the physiological sigh. When you feel overwhelmed by a symptom or a difficult medical interaction, your breathing likely becomes shallow or erratic. A simple, scientifically proven way to signal safety to your brain is the physiological sigh. 1. Take a deep inhale through your nose. 2. Before you exhale, take a second, shorter inhale through your nose to fully inflate the lungs. 3. Release a long, slow exhale through your mouth. Repeat this 3 times. This specific pattern of breathing mechanically offloads carbon dioxide and triggers a rapid slowing of the heart rate, shifting your body from a sympathetic, stress, state to a parasympathetic, rest and digest, state. Aligning movement with emotional regulation. Movement is often framed as a chore or a medical requirement, but it is one of the most effective tools for emotional integration. When you move, you are not just exercising muscles, you are moving emotional energy through your system. However, the way you move matters. If you push your body beyond its capacity to get fit, you may trigger a stress response that worsens your condition. Instead, focus on movement that emphasizes connection. Practice conscious movement, walking, stretching, or light yoga, while focusing entirely on the sensation of your feet against the floor, or the stretch in your muscles. This keeps you grounded in the present, preventing the mind from spiraling into what-if scenarios regarding your health. The role of rest as an active practice. Many people struggling with illness view rest as a failure or a symptom of weakness. This perspective is a barrier to healing. In this context, rest must be reframed as an active, therapeutic practice. Just as a professional athlete requires recovery time to rebuild muscle tissue, your body requires intentional rest to manage inflammation and support immune function. To integrate physical and emotional healing, practice restorative stillness. This is not simply napping. It is a period of 10 to 15 minutes where you intentionally withdraw from stimulation. Turn off the phone, dim the lights, and lie in a comfortable position. If your mind wanders to your health worries, gently acknowledge the thought and return your focus to the sensation of your body sinking into the surface beneath you. This practice teaches your nervous system that it is safe to power down, which is essential for systemic healing. Nutrition and the gut-brain axis. We often overlook the gut-brain axis, yet it is a primary site where physical and emotional health converge. The gut produces a significant portion of your body's serotonin, the neurotransmitter responsible for mood stability. When you are under chronic stress, your digestion is often the first system to be deprioritized, leading to inflammation that can negatively affect your mental clarity and emotional resilience. You don't need to adopt a restrictive, complex diet to see benefits. Instead, focus on mindful nourishment. Before you eat, take one breath to acknowledge the food as fuel for your healing. Eating in a calm state, rather than while scrolling through stressful news or rushing to a medical appointment, improves nutrient absorption and keeps your stress hormones in check. Integrating emotional regulation into medical care. One of the most powerful ways to bridge the gap between physical and emotional healing is to bring your emotional awareness into your clinical environment. When you sit down with a healthcare provider, you are often focused on the physical data, blood work, test results, and dosage adjustments. However, your emotional state during these appointments is just as vital. If you are anxious, you may be less capable of processing information, leading to feelings of disempowerment. Practical strategy, the pre-appointment anchor. Before entering a doctor's office or starting a telehealth call, perform a grounding check. Physical, feel your body in the chair. Notice the temperature of the room. Emotional, name one emotion you are feeling, e.g., I am feeling nervous about these results. Validating the feeling reduces its power. Intention, state one goal for the appointment, e.g., I will ask for a clear explanation of this medication. By grounding yourself, you shift from a passive recipient of care to an active partner. This shift reduces the patient anxiety that often exacerbates physical symptoms, allowing you to communicate more effectively and receive better care. The power of self-talk on physical inflammation. Your internal dialogue is not just a collection of words, it is a signal to your body. Research in psychoneuroimmunology suggests that negative self-talk, such as "my body is failing me," or "I am broken," can contribute to a physiological stress response that keeps the body in a state of high alert. Conversely, compassionate self-talk acts as a buffer. When you experience a flare-up, try shifting your internal narrative from judgment to curiosity. Instead of, "I can't believe I'm sick again, this is so frustrating," try, "My body is currently struggling with inflammation. What does it need right now to feel safer?" This minor linguistic shift moves you from a state of internal conflict to a state of internal cooperation. You become an ally to your body, rather than an adversary. Developing a healing routine. Integration is not a one-time event, it is a daily practice. To sustain your resilience, you must weave these habits into the fabric of your existing schedule. 1. Morning priming. Before checking your phone, spend 2 minutes focusing on your breath. This sets a baseline of calm before the demands of the day intervene. 2. Midday reset. Use your lunch break or a brief moment of downtime to practice a body scan. Mentally move from your head to your toes, releasing tension in each muscle group. 3. Evening reflection. Before sleep, write down one thing your body did well today, even if it is as small as "my lungs breathed easily while I rested." This reinforces the capacity for health, rather than focusing solely on the presence of illness. The non-linear path of integration. It is important to acknowledge that there will be days when your physical symptoms seem to defy your emotional efforts. You may practice mindfulness, eat well, and prioritize rest, only to wake up in significant pain. When this happens, do not view it as a failure of your mind-body practice. Healing is non-linear. The goal of integrating physical and emotional health is not to guarantee a pain-free existence, but to ensure that you are not adding the weight of shame, self-blame, or catastrophic thinking to the weight of your physical symptoms. When you integrate these practices, you are building a safety container for your life. Even when your physical symptoms are high, you have the tools to prevent your emotional world from collapsing. You remain the captain of the ship, even when the seas are rough. Summary of principles. The mind-body connection is real. Acknowledge that your emotional state is a physical factor in your health. Regulation over suppression. Use breath work and grounding to signal safety to your nervous system. Active rest. View rest as a vital component of your healing strategy, not a sign of defeat. Cooperative dialogue. Use compassionate self-talk to turn your relationship with your body from adversarial to collaborative. Clinical integration. Bring your grounded self into medical settings to improve your advocacy and outcomes. By aligning your mind and body, you stop fighting against yourself. You move into a state of radical alliance, where every action you take, emotional or physical, is designed to support your well-being. This is the foundation of resilience. It is the practice of showing up for yourself, fully and completely, regardless of the diagnosis. As you move forward, keep in mind that these tools are not meant to be perfect, they are meant to be practiced. Start with one technique, perhaps the physiological sigh or the evening reflection, and allow it to become a part of your daily rhythm. As you build these habits, you will find that your ability to navigate the challenges of your health journey increases, and your sense of agency returns. You are not just managing an illness, you are cultivating a resilient spirit, capable of finding peace and empowerment in the midst of the most difficult circumstances. Chapter 11. Designing a future you are excited about. When you are living with a chronic health challenge, the future can feel like a blur of medical appointments, unpredictable symptoms, and limitations. It is easy to fall into the trap of waiting for the test results, waiting for the medication to work, or waiting to feel normal again before you begin living your life. However, resilience is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It is about learning how to build a life while the wind is still blowing. Designing a future you are excited about requires a shift in perspective. It means moving from a mindset of endurance to a mindset of intentional creation. You are not merely a patient managing a condition, you are the architect of your own experience. The myth of the before life. Many people become stuck because they are mourning the future they originally planned, the one they imagined before their health changed. This is a natural grieving process, but if you remain anchored to a version of your life that is no longer possible, you will consistently feel like you are failing. To design a future that excites you, you must first grant yourself permission to let go of the before life. This does not mean giving up on your dreams, it means evolving them. If you were an avid runner and now your mobility is limited, your dream of movement and achievement hasn't died, it has simply shifted its medium. Perhaps it now looks like adaptive sports, swimming, or even becoming a mentor to others in your community. When you decouple your core values from specific activities, you unlock endless possibilities. Ask yourself, what was the essence of the life I wanted? Was it connection? Creativity? Contribution? Adventure? Those values remain intact, even if the methods for achieving them must change. The strategy of flexible goal setting. In a healthy body, we are often taught to set rigid goals with specific timelines. In the context of chronic illness, rigidity is often the enemy of progress. If you set a goal that requires a certain level of physical performance you cannot guarantee, you set yourself up for unnecessary disappointment. Instead, practice flexible goal setting. This involves 3 components. 1. The North Star goal. This is your big picture vision. It is the direction you want to move in, regardless of how fast you get there. For example, I want to become a published writer. 2. The tiered action plan. This is where you adapt to your energy levels. Green day, high energy, you write for 2 hours and research publishers. Yellow day, moderate energy, you write for 30 minutes, or edit a previous draft. Red day, low energy, you brainstorm ideas on your phone while resting, or read a book in your genre to stay inspired. 3. The process over outcome metric. Measure your success by the effort you put in, not the output you produce. If you showed up for your goal, you succeeded. By using this tiered approach, you maintain momentum even on your most difficult days. You stop seeing your health as an obstacle to your goals and start seeing it as a variable that you learn to navigate. Identifying your energy-positive passions. Often, we lose excitement for the future because we are exhausted by the energy-negative tasks required by our illness, managing insurance, physical therapy, and symptom tracking. To balance this, you must intentionally integrate energy-positive activities into your life. These are activities that leave you feeling more alive, even if they don't produce a tangible result. For some, this is gardening. For others, it is learning a language, painting, or engaging in community advocacy. Exercise, the joy audit. Look at your current schedule. Identify 3 activities that consistently leave you feeling drained, beyond the physical fatigue of your illness, and 3 that leave you feeling energized. Your goal for the next month is to reduce the time spent on one drained activity and increase the time spent on one energized activity. This isn't just about fun, it is about reclaiming your identity. When you engage in activities that make you feel like you, not the patient, not the diagnosis, you provide your nervous system with a much-needed break from the threat mode of illness. Integrating your health reality, not being defined by it. A common pitfall in future designing is toxic positivity, the idea that if you just think happy thoughts, your health will improve. We know this is not only untrue, but also invalidating. Designing a future you are excited about requires radical honesty. You must factor your health reality into your planning. If you want to travel, your plan might involve more rest days, specific accessibility needs, or a different pace of exploration. When you plan with your illness in mind, you are not admitting defeat, you are being a master strategist. When you stop trying to hide your illness or power through without regard for your body, you actually create more freedom. You stop wasting energy on the anxiety of what if I have a flare-up, because you have already accounted for that possibility in your plan. You create a safety net, which allows you to take risks and pursue the things that excite you. Visualizing your future self. Psychological research consistently shows that we make better decisions when we feel connected to our future selves. However, when we are in pain or struggling, we tend to disconnect from that future person. We view them as a stranger. To build excitement, you must bridge that gap. Take time each week to visualize yourself 6 months, or a year from now. Do not visualize yourself cured, visualize yourself thriving within your current circumstances. What does your morning routine look like? What projects are you working on that bring you pride? How are you interacting with your loved ones? How does it feel to have navigated the challenges of the last year with grace and intentionality? By vividly imagining this version of yourself, you begin to align your daily actions with that future reality. You start making micro decisions, what to eat, how to spend your evening, what boundaries to set, that serve the person you are becoming. The role of contribution and purpose. Nothing kills excitement faster than isolation and self-absorption. Even when you are struggling, finding a way to contribute to the world, no matter how small, is one of the most powerful ways to build self-esteem. Purpose is the antidote to the feeling of being a burden. You might contribute by volunteering your skills remotely, offering emotional support to a friend, or even sharing your story to help others navigating similar paths. When you are a source of value to others, you reinforce the reality that your worth is not tied to your productivity or your physical health. You are a human being with a unique perspective and the capacity to impact the world around you. Practical steps for implementation. If you are feeling stuck, start here. 1. Define your why. Why do you want to keep growing? Is it to see your children succeed? Is it to master a new skill? Is it to feel the sun on your face while doing something you love? Write this down. 2. Audit your environment. Does your current space support the future you want? Can you change your desk setup, your bedroom, or your digital habits to better reflect your goals? 3. Start small. Choose one goal that has been on the back burner. Break it down into the smallest possible step, something that takes less than 10 minutes. Do it today. 4. Find your community. Surround yourself with people who see your potential rather than your limitations. If your current circle is focused solely on your symptoms, look for communities, online or in person, where the focus is on shared interests or personal growth. A note on non-linear progress. As you design this future, remember the lessons from Chapter 9. Your path will not be a straight line. There will be weeks where your future designing takes a backseat to symptom management. This is not a failure. It is the reality of your current chapter. The goal is not to reach a destination where you are finished and fixed. The goal is to cultivate a life that is engaging, meaningful, and deeply yours, even in the presence of physical challenges. You are building a capacity for joy that is resilient enough to withstand the ups and downs of your health. Conclusion: the authority of your own narrative. You are the only person who can write the next chapter of your life. While you cannot control every medical variable, you have total agency over how you interpret your journey and where you direct your focus. An exciting future is not one devoid of challenges. It is one where you have the tools, the self-compassion, and the vision to navigate those challenges while staying true to your core values. You have already survived 100% of your hardest days. You have the resilience to design a life that is not just about survival, but about meaningful, vibrant, and intentional living. Take a deep breath. Look ahead. What is the one thing you can do today that would make your future self proud? That is your starting point. That is your power. Chapter 12. Sustaining your confidence for the long term. You have traveled a significant distance since the first chapter of this book. We began by acknowledging the shock of diagnosis and the heavy emotional weight that follows a health crisis. We moved through the practicalities of advocacy, the art of setting boundaries, and the quiet, persistent work of reframing your internal narrative. You have learned that confidence is not a static destination you arrive at, but a practice you inhabit. As you close this book, you might feel a natural urge to return to old patterns. It is human nature to revert to comfort zones, even when those zones are defined by self-doubt or the limitations of an illness. The challenge of the long term is not about avoiding bad days or pretending that your health does not fluctuate. Rather, it is about building a structural integrity for your self-esteem that can withstand the inevitable cycles of chronic challenge. Sustaining your confidence requires shifting your focus from fixing your life to maintaining your resilience. Think of this as the difference between emergency surgery and a long-term wellness plan. You have already performed the surgery, now, it is time to master the daily maintenance. The architecture of maintenance. In the early stages of illness, resilience is often fueled by necessity. You had to learn to advocate for yourself, manage your energy, and process grief, because the alternative was overwhelming. Over time, that urgency fades. To sustain your confidence, you must transition from reactive coping to proactive cultivation. This is the maintenance phase. It relies on three pillars: routine, reflection, and renewal. 1. The power of micro-routines. Confidence thrives on consistency, not intensity. Many people believe they need grand gestures, a total life overhaul, or a major achievement, to prove their worth. In reality, sustained confidence is built on the small, unglamorous habits you keep when no one is watching. Consider the non-negotiables. These are 2 or 3 small actions that anchor your sense of self, regardless of your physical condition. For some, it is 5 minutes of mindful breathing before the day begins. For others, it is writing down one thing they did well, no matter how small, before bed. When your health makes the big goals impossible, these micro-routines become the evidence of your agency. They are proof that you are still the architect of your day, even within the constraints of your body. 2. Scheduled reflection. We often lose our confidence because we lose perspective. When we are caught in the middle of a flare-up or a difficult medical interaction, it is easy to believe that the current moment is the permanent reality. To combat this, integrate a resilience review into your life. Once a month, take 20 minutes to look back. Ask yourself, what is one thing I handled better this month than I would have 6 months ago? Where did I set a boundary that protected my energy? In what ways did I treat myself with kindness during a difficult moment? By documenting your growth, you create a tangible record of your progress. This acts as a buffer against future self-doubt. When you feel like you are failing, you can look back at your notes and see the objective truth: you are adapting, you are learning, and you are evolving. 3. Intentional renewal. Resilience is not a bottomless resource. You cannot sustain your confidence if you are constantly running on an empty tank. Renewal is not treating yourself, it is an essential component of emotional hygiene. Identify what restores you. Is it time in nature, reading, creative expression, or quiet solitude? Whatever it is, schedule it as if it were a doctor's appointment. If you don't prioritize your own replenishment, the demands of your health and daily life will consume that time for you. The confidence portfolio. One of the most effective ways to sustain self-esteem is to broaden your definition of what makes you valuable. If you tie your entire sense of self to your physical health or your productivity, you will always be vulnerable to a crash. I encourage you to develop a confidence portfolio. Just as a financial advisor suggests diversifying your investments to mitigate risk, you should diversify the sources of your self-esteem. The competence asset. What skills are you developing? Perhaps you are learning a new language, mastering a hobby, or becoming an expert in your own medical care. These activities remind you that you are a learner and a problem solver. The connection asset. Who are the people who see you for who you are, not just for your illness? Investing in these relationships provides a mirror that reflects your strengths back to you when you cannot see them yourself. The contribution asset. How do you add value to the world? Even in a limited capacity, you can offer wisdom, kindness, or support to others. Helping someone else is one of the fastest ways to reclaim a sense of personal power. By spreading your sense of self-worth across these different areas, you ensure that even if one area, like your health, is struggling, your entire foundation does not collapse. Navigating the slump. Let us be clear, there will be days when your confidence feels non-existent. You will have days where the grief returns, where the fatigue is overwhelming, and where the inner critic finds its voice again. This is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of being human. When you hit a slump, do not try to force confidence. Confidence is not a hammer, it is a plant. You cannot force it to grow, you can only provide the right conditions and wait. During these times, rely on your emergency resilience kit. This is a list you create while you are feeling well. It should include the names of 3 people you can call who will listen without trying to fix you. A list of 3 low-energy wins, such as showering, reading 1 page of a book, or sitting outside for 10 minutes. A mantras list. Write down 3 sentences that ground you. Examples might include, this is a moment, not a lifetime, my worth is not defined by my productivity, or I am doing the best I can with the tools I have today. When you are in a slump, do not look for the summit of the mountain. Just focus on the next step. If you can only manage one thing, manage that. That is enough. The myth of the healed identity. A common trap in long-term illness is waiting for the day you feel back to normal. This implies that your current self is merely a placeholder for your real self. This mindset is the enemy of sustained confidence. The person you are today, with your experiences, your limitations, and your hard-won insights, is the real you. You have been forged by your journey. You possess a level of empathy, patience, and internal strength that people who have never faced such challenges often lack. To sustain your confidence, you must embrace this new version of yourself. Stop comparing your current capacity to your pre-illness self. That person no longer exists, and that is okay. The version of you that exists now is capable of things the previous version never had to consider. A call to action, the living document. This book is a guide, but your life is the document. As you finish this final chapter, I want you to commit to one thing, the practice of self-witnessing. We spend so much time analyzing our symptoms, our labs, and our medical reports. We rarely spend time analyzing our own growth. Start viewing yourself as a subject of study. Observe your reactions, celebrate your pivots, and document your resilience. When you notice yourself falling into old patterns of self-blame, pause. Use the tools from Chapter 3 to practice radical self-compassion. When you feel overwhelmed by the healthcare system, return to the advocacy skills in Chapter 4. When you feel isolated, revisit the social strategies in Chapter 6. You are not doing this journey, you are being it. Resilience is not something you achieve and then set aside. It is the steady, rhythmic heartbeat of your life. It is the ability to fall down, to feel the pain, to acknowledge the fear, and then to stand back up, not because you are invincible, but because you are committed to your own well-being. Final reflections. Confidence, in the context of chronic challenge, is the quiet knowledge that you can handle whatever comes next. It is not the absence of fear, it is the presence of trust in your own capacity to adapt. You have the tools. You have the insight. You have the history of your own survival to prove that you are capable of navigating the unknown. The path ahead may be non-linear. It will have its peaks and its valleys, its days of clarity and its days of fog. But you are no longer a passive observer of your health journey. You are the protagonist. You are the one who decides how to interpret your challenges, how to define your value, and how to shape your future. Trust the work you have done. Trust the resilience you have uncovered. And most importantly, trust that you are enough, exactly as you are, exactly where you are, in this very moment. You have reclaimed your power. Now, take it and build the life you deserve, one intentional, resilient day at a time. Epilogue. You have reached the end of this guide, but in many ways, you are only just beginning the most important chapter of your life. Throughout these pages, we have navigated the complex terrain of illness, moving from the initial shock of diagnosis to the intentional design of a future that honors both your physical reality and your inherent worth. We began by acknowledging the emotional earthquake that follows a health challenge. We learned that the grief, fear, and frustration you felt were not signs of weakness, but evidence of your humanity. By decoupling your identity from your medical chart, you reclaimed the multi-dimensional person that exists beneath the labels. You learned that self-compassion is not a luxury, but a vital tool for survival, and that by becoming an active partner in your healthcare, you could transform from a passive recipient of care into a powerful advocate for your own well-being. You have explored the mechanics of managing your energy budget, the art of curating a supportive social circle, and the psychological power of reframing your narrative. You have practiced mindfulness to anchor yourself in the present moment, discovered the anatomy of resilience through the celebration of small wins, and integrated your physical and emotional health into a cohesive, sustainable lifestyle. Most importantly, you have begun to design a future that, while perhaps different from the one you once envisioned, is still yours to shape, influence, and enjoy. As you close this book, it is natural to feel a mix of relief and perhaps a touch of apprehension. The tools you have learned are powerful, but they require consistent, gentle application. Resilience is not a destination you reach and then stop, it is a practice. It is a muscle that strengthens only through daily use. There will be days when the weight of your circumstances feels heavy, when the shoulds creep back into your internal dialogue, or when your energy levels plummet without warning. On those days, do not view your struggle as a failure of your progress. View it as a moment to return to the basics. Remember that you are the architect of your own experience. When the world feels overwhelming, return to the foundational practices we discussed. Practice radical self-compassion. When you falter, speak to yourself as you would to a dear friend. Silence the inner critic and offer yourself the grace you so readily give to others. Protect your agency, continue to advocate for your needs, ask the difficult questions, and surround yourself with people who see your value beyond your symptoms. Honor the small wins, never underestimate the power of a good enough day. Your progress is not measured by the absence of illness, but by your ability to find moments of joy, purpose, and peace within it. Stay present. When the future feels too large or frightening, ground yourself in the current moment. You only ever have to navigate the present hour, the present task, and the present breath. The path ahead is not linear. It will have its peaks of clarity and its valleys of uncertainty. However, you are no longer walking that path blindly. You carry with you a toolkit of strategies that allow you to maintain your dignity and your self-esteem, regardless of what your body is doing. You have moved from a place of being fixed by external circumstances to a place of internal empowerment. Your life remains a story worth telling. Even with the constraints of chronic challenge, you possess the capacity to find meaning, to pursue passions, and to contribute to the world in ways that are uniquely yours. Do not let the medical labels define the boundaries of your potential. You are a person of deep resilience, capable of profound growth and sustained confidence. Take a moment to acknowledge how far you have come. Look back at the version of yourself that started this book, the one who may have felt lost, untethered, or defeated, and recognize the strength it took to engage with these ideas. That strength is not external, it is yours. It was always there, waiting to be recognized and nurtured. As you move forward, carry this knowledge with you. Your illness is a part of your life, but it is not the entirety of your life. You are the protagonist, the narrator, and the architect. You have the power to define your own success, to set your own boundaries, and to create a future that is rich with meaning, connection, and self-respect. Trust in your process. Trust in your voice. And above all, trust in your ability to navigate whatever comes next. You have the tools, you have the perspective, and you have the spirit to thrive. Your journey continues, and you are ready. A note to readers. Thank you so much for taking this journey through the resilient spirit. Deciding to invest in your emotional and mental well-being while navigating the physical demands of an illness is an act of profound courage. By opening this book, you chose to actively participate in your own healing, and for that, you should be incredibly proud. As we traveled through these 12 chapters together, we explored how to reclaim your confidence from the ground up. We began by acknowledging the complex emotional landscape of a diagnosis and learned the vital art of decoupling your identity from your physical condition. You have practiced radical self-compassion, discovered how to navigate the healthcare system with authority, and learned to manage your daily energy budget with clear, guilt-free boundaries. By cultivating a supportive social circle, reframing your personal narrative, and utilizing mindfulness in times of pain, you have built a toolkit grounded in true psychological resilience. My deepest hope is that you now see yourself not merely as a patient, but as the active architect of your own life. Through celebrating small wins, integrating physical and emotional healing, and designing a future you are genuinely excited about, you have laid the foundation to sustain your self-esteem for the long term. You have proven that while your body may face constraints, your spirit remains limitless. If this book has helped you find comfort, reclaim your agency, or view your health journey through a lens of empowerment, I would be deeply grateful if you could share your experience by leaving a review on Amazon. Your honest feedback takes only a moment, but it plays a vital role in helping other readers who are navigating chronic challenges find this guide. By sharing your thoughts, you can help shine a light for someone else searching for their own resilient spirit. Thank you once again for your trust, your time, and your inspiring resilience. May you continue to walk forward with confidence, compassion, and the unwavering knowledge that you are the true protagonist of your story. About the author. Neil Branson is a digital architect and independent publisher dedicated to creating community-driven platforms. With a focus on high-performance infrastructure and accessible content, Neil builds the tools he believes the Internet needs. From developing specialized streaming environments to curating unique media experiences, he is committed to challenging industry norms and empowering creators to reach their audiences directly. He believes in a more open, ad-free web for everyone.